Ooh, 1. Alright, YouTube is saying I'm live. Now, is it lying or is it telling the truth? These are always questions we must ask ourselves. Nope, says we're live.
Yep, there we go.
Aye.
I got an ad.
You got an ad?
I got an ad, I shit you not.
Well, YouTube is putting ads on it now. That's interesting.
Okay, pull up the live chat so I can read that, and I am good to go.
Alright, so... I'm waiting for the Streamlabs chat to start generating the chat, but till it does, oh, Nathan, of course, started with a super chat. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you very much, man. Cool is awesome. Please say something though, please. Jackson, heyo, what's up? What's up, Jackson? Welcome to the podcast, man. Welcome to the podcast. Calcio, welcome to the tongue tied already. Welcome to the podcast. How is everybody doing today? I hope well.
Actually, I have some good news.
Ooh.
I have my preliminary appointment for the kidney stones, not tomorrow, but the next day.
Nice.
And they just because the referral was set up yesterday. They called me this morning like, hey, want to come in on Friday? It's the earliest one we got. Like, yes. Kidney stones suck.
Yes, help me deal with this agony now.
I don't think my doctor did it on purpose, but the pain meds she gave me are half the strength of the one she gave me the first time. So it's like, oh, what did I do to piss her off?
Maybe you crapped in her cornflakes. I
don't know. No, I don't think she did it intentionally.
Nah, I'm joking, of course. Oh, Calco says, do your best Swedish accent. Well, I can't, because my Swedish... I would make it sound too German or Danish. That whole chunk of the world, that whole chunk of the world, it kind of just melds accents for me. So, sorry.
And I would turn into the Swedish chef from the Muppets, so no.
Yeah, if it weren't for Calcul and if it weren't for Calcul and some certain like memes I've heard before, I wouldn't even know Sweden was really a thing. And I'm being honest, like in terms of countries I forget that exist, like the top like 4 that typically leave my brain the most, and it'll be funny as hell if I forget them now. Sweden, Norway,
I'm surprised Nigeria, you forget Norway,
Nigeria, and Thailand. Like those are like the 4 nations that I constantly forget exist. Like every other nation, I more or less can relatively remember most of the time. Those are like the 4 that I consistently forget. I'm impressed that I remembered all 4 of them right now. But usually those are the 4 that, like, if people were like, hey, this place, and I'm like, yes, that place exists, right? Okay, I don't know. Well, good that you don't then, if you make it sound Danish. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I can't do a faithful Swedish accent. Unless you want me to do a mimicry of a Swedish chef from the Muppets.
That's
that's the closest to Swedish I could get, my friend. Saul Tarvitz is always be a true son of the Emperor. Saul Tarvitz.
Yes, I agree with that, but he's dead, so.
Well, he can still be a son of Emperor.
Dead. It's just they didn't write anything. They didn't write anything for him after Istvan 3. But considering Istvan 3 was virus bombed and then the entire planet set on fire and now it is a Nurgle plague world,
well, yeah, that's why I'm pretty sure he is dead, isn't he? Saul Tarvitz.
They really didn't say it, but the chances of him surviving are so astronomical that even in 40k, like no. Like his chances of surviving are less than the chances of some Eldar waifu bringing Gilliman back from the dead.
Yeah, you're right. It's ultimately unknown. Really, I could have sworn I read something that he died. I don't know. It could just be like a comment I saw somewhere saying he's dead. I don't know. That to me, like in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm pretty sure he did, but I don't know. Just reading that right there in the lexiconum, it says fate unknown.
Yeah,
That's weird to me
logic would
now.
dictate. Well, he was on Istvan 3 when it was virus bombed and then set on fire. So now the other side of this is Garviel Loken survived that. So could he have survived? Absolutely. Did he? Probably not. Loken only survived because he's an important character. Let's not fucking split hairs.
Yeah. With Isfan 5, where the actual main battle of the Dropsite Massacre occurred.
Yeah.
That fuck, my train of thought just went right out the window. I watched it go. Like I had a specific thing I wanted to mention, and then it was like, no, I be gone now, and I'm like, fuck you.
You got what you asked for, by the way.
What?
Nathan.
Oh, Nathan! Yay! Yay! Thank you, Nathan! Yay! Thank you! Thank you so much! I want to cry. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for the super chat as well. Thank you. Local main man canceled for offensive Swede talk. I think so, with the crowd that's around here, some in the cities for sure, but most of them are too afraid to leave the apartment complexes in the middle of places like Portland and Bangor. The moment they step out and see a bunch of trees, they're like, "Oh my god, I have to return to the city. I feel so sick and ill." So I'm in a very safe spot to avoid the easily offended crowd. So gotta love Mother Nature. She's good for one thing. She keeps out the oversensitive people.
No, they just flock to the internet.
Yeah, the internet's a safe place, but the moment you get out into the real wilderness, good luck. Those tweets ain't saving you.
I do want to. I forgot to mention this because I was in actually a massive hurry jumping in. I do want to just devote like maybe 5 to 10 minutes to talk about what we talked about last night because I did the like you want to talk about the Dropsite Massacre. Where I want to talk about the Zerg versus Tyrannid, just based on what we talked about last night, because I do think that is kind of funny.
Yeah, we did talk about that a little bit last night, and we talked about it on a previous podcast, but I guess we could do a more dedicated bit of it today.
Well, it's just because I did that video yesterday, and I still have to edit it and put all the artwork with it, and put the new Asmogon intro in front of it.
Don't forget to put that in there. Oh, speaking of, before we get proper started with the topics today, something really cool happened. Like, so when I was practicing making like the effects for your intro, the practice I used for that was, do you know Adeptus Ridiculous?
I don't.
It's a new podcast that started up, 40k podcast, by the guy Bricky, who did the every single Warhammer 40k faction explained. He did the 2 episodes of that, both 50-hour long.
Okay.
Yeah. He did that. Quiet Shy. She's done Warframe videos. She's also a 40k fan. Huge fan of orcs. And DK Diamantes. He's the one I know the least about.
Okay.
You know, if they see this, I don't mean to offend you, man. It's just out of the 3, you're the one I found via the podcast.
And again, not to offend them, but I know nothing about any of them. So.
Quiet Shy is very, very funny. She's awesome. Her videos are hilarious, especially if you played Warframe. But even if you haven't, they're still funny because she intentionally bugs out games. Like, intentionally bugs the fuck out of them, just for comedy. She doesn't show her face or talk in her real voice. She uses like a robot, like what do you call it?
Like a voice concealer.
No, it's not. It's not her voice being changed. It's like that auto voice generator that people on Twitch use for like the Twitch chat. Like if they get it's not a super chat. The super chat equivalent on Twitch. You know, they have like that automated voice that speaks the lines.
Yeah,
she uses a female version of that to fill in her lines. So she protects her anonymity on the internet very closely, which I respect. I don't do that, but that's mainly because I have no sense of self-preservation.
Well, to an extent, I do too. Most people don't call me by my name, which I really don't care because I don't advertise personal stuff about me. But at the same time, when people ask, I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, me, I protect my real name fairly closely, but there are people out there who've seen my videos who know it. Especially if you watch like my reaction channel days. There was a couple times I was called almost my full name on a couple of those videos. So people have been following me for like a very long time, probably know my name. But I don't mind that. Like, it's not a harm to me at all.
Right.
Like, I don't particularly care. Like, again, where I live, worst case scenario, if somebody really wanted to do me harm and hunt me down, dude, you got quite the neighborhood to trek through, my friend. Good luck. You know, if you were able to make it through this area and find me, you know what? You earned it. You earned my life. There you go. Well done. But, you know, like, I don't particularly get... I still prefer to go by my nomenclature online and by my name. Because more or less, it's the name... Like, everyone has, like, an online name they prefer to go by because... you know, the internet personality you go with and like the IRL personality you go with are, though you're the same person, they're two different, like, I guess
almost two different personalities.
Almost. Like with online, I'm a lot more open, oddly enough. Yeah. In person, I'm a little bit quieter, especially if I'm first meeting people. I'm particularly quieter, so like that would be like the major difference between Asmagon and me. So
yeah,
you know, either way, they're still me. But the way I interact and the way I speak and the way I handle things is completely different based on the two. It's kind of like having multiple personalities, but it's the same personality, just different environments. I don't know.
It's a healthy way of having multiple personalities.
It's a healthy way to do it. Real quick, let's welcome the rest of the folks. Draven, welcome, man. Welcome. Welcome to the podcast. Matthew Gordon Jackson, Ray VG, welcome my wonderful friends. So before we get started with the topics, I wanted to show everybody this, because this, you know, as I was saying earlier, let me switch views. So I made to practice making the effects for your intro, I made this, and it shocked me because I sent it to Quiet Shy, thinking relatively that it wasn't going to be used. It was just, you know, hey, here's a cool thing I made, you know, for practice for something else, using your guys' logo for some effects. So I wanted, so I just shared it with them. Didn't think they would use it, and they did. So on their episode of Warhammer 40k lore for orcs, which they just put up today, they used the intro. So do you see it on the?
Yeah, I can see it, but I'm also, I think, a few seconds behind. But okay. Yeah, I see it. Well, I'm a few seconds ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll just play it real quick. And by the way, for everybody who's on the podcast right now, this is our like react view. Like if we're gonna like watch like a trailer or a quick clip of something you guys might want to share over on the Discord, go ahead and do that. I will obviously like look at it briefly before like we put it up in the react view to make sure that you guys aren't trying to troll us into getting, you know, struck. So, and only YouTube clips, by the way, like nothing off YouTube. I won't even click on that stuff. Not that I expect we're going to use this view a lot, but just like here and there for certain things.
Yeah.
We're actually going to use it twice, kind of, sort of, because I'm going to play like the trailer for the first topic. We're talking about the new Blood Angels game. I'm going to play the trailer. I'm going to play it really quiet so we can talk over it without it being too disturbing.
Okay.
So that will be that'll be the other usage of this view for this podcast. But to show everybody what I did for the It's Ridiculous folks, which by the way I was super. I'm not gonna lie, I was like a giddy schoolgirl when they used it. I don't know why, because this isn't the first time I've like offered or done help for like other YouTubers and other groups. Maybe it's just because I like this podcast so much. Like the only podcast I like more than theirs is ours. To be fair, like that's it. That's it. Like there's is second, this is first, and like EFAP is third. So, but I don't know why I like theirs so much. But it's mainly because like Bricky is introducing DK Diamantes to the world of 40k. So maybe it's just that experience of like showing a newbie this universe. Like maybe something about that is just so much fun.
What do you think the odds would be that we could probably invite either one or hell, even all of them over for one day for a podcast or something? Just like a big group thing.
I don't know, to be frank. Like, on one hand, it would be really cool, but on the other, like, though the channel for their podcast is small, individually, each of these guys are like, I think Bricky is like 300, 400,000 subscribers. Quiet Shy has got way more than that. Or I say way more. I haven't checked their individual channels' subscriber counts in a while. And DK Diamantes, I don't know if he has a YouTube channel, but I'm pretty sure he's on Twitch. Each of these guys individually are fairly big creators. So
yeah,
from that perspective, we'd have some difficult. Like, it's cool that I was able to send a DM to one of them and get like a line there. But in terms of bringing them on as guests to this podcast, I'm not sure I'd be able to pull that off. It's just a size thing, and like we've discussed before, like bringing on Arch or Kibbs. Arch, we know more personally, so it really wouldn't be like inviting like as much a guest as almost a friend, since he knows us. With Kibbs, same deal, and also Kibbs is roughly the same size as us. But for someone who doesn't know, you. Well, yeah. Well, your subscriber count may not be up there, man, but you're amongst that group. But
I appreciate that, but I don't know how to feel about it at the same time.
I was just saying. But for people like these three, they're much bigger. They don't know us personally. So with bringing them on, I sense that would probably be less likely. Simply it's just a size thing, and it's not like I take it personally. I get it. Like, you really want to network with people your size or bigger to help your growth. Yeah. If you network with someone smaller, they're the only ones getting any really added growth out of it. So people, I get it. So I highly doubt they'd be willing to do that. And plus, I've come off as a fan of theirs so far. That's the other thing. Like, when you're a creator and a fan really wants you to do something with them or for them or something like that, sometimes, you're entirely open to it, but once you reach a certain size, I'm sure there's plenty of fans who would like hound them to say, hey, can you come on this? Or, hey, can you do this with me? Or, hey,
I get that. And also kind of the reason I said is because when you said, I believe it was Quiet Shy was primarily like an orc person.
Yes.
I mean, you got you, who, even though you like orcs, you're more primary into Astarte, specifically
for lore.
Imperial Fists.
Yeah, for lore, I'm 100% Imperial Fists. I love Black Templars; they're my favorite.
Yeah,
but for tabletop and lore, it's orcs all the way, man. Like, they're so much fun. It's so much fun to roll a 1 with a fucking pain boy, and he shanks the orc he's trying to heal and kills him. It's fucking hilarious.
And also, I was actually coming at it from a lore perspective, and like for me, I prefer chaos. That's 3 people with 3 very different, very different areas. So I just thought that'd be cool because I like talking with people, because I believe Arch, unless I misheard this, I believe his favorite group is the Blood Angels. Unless sure. I've completely misheard that. I think I remember him saying that in one of his videos or on a stream or something.
The only thing I'm confident about with what Arch favors is the Skaven from Fantasy. In terms of 40k, I don't know his preferred faction. Lore or tabletop or both. Like, I don't know. He's most likely mentioned it somewhere, but I'm not thinking of it right now.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, like, even though that would be more, like, if that is true, that would be more like with you, because it's 2 loyalist groups, and I'm sitting over here being my chaotic self. It's still, Blood Angels and Imperial Fist are very different too.
Yeah. Oh, Nathan sent another super chat. Thank you, Nathan. I don't know why the alert didn't go off. Thank you, Nathan. Says the word react. Billy Mount has entered the chat. It's true. It's true. Going Ultra Instinct and shit. Yeah, that's true. I got a couple of this here. Jorge, welcome, by the way. I don't know if I welcomed you, man. There is a new animation YouTube channel that recently came out about Primaris getting into his armor. Real nice. Check it out, called The Raptor. Alright, we might be able to actually check that out as well here, if it's short, for 1, and for 2, the creator has no problem with reactions. As long as that's not a negatory, that's cool. But if there's no word out on whether they're okay with it or not, we're just not gonna do that. But I'll check it out on my own time for sure. So yeah, before keep dilly dallying. But this is the intro I made. This is the intro I made for the Adeptus. Well, I say intro. What I did is I took the logo that they made and I just I added like animated effects. That's all. Like I didn't do anything too fancy.
Right.
Yeah.
Welcome everybody to another episode.
Yep. So that's pretty much it. Like,
I like it.
yeah, I used that as practice for your intro, which it was pretty good practice. I was able to shape the more difficult part as opposed to yours is because this wasn't my own text. I had to manually outline where the effect was to go. So it took me about 30 minutes. I was zoomed right in, and I had to manually like outline where all the effect had to lay out. So that right there took about a half hour to an hour, somewhere in there. The eye effect was so fucking easy though. That was the easiest part by far. But it was really cool that they include. I think is when I sent it to them, I had no belief whatsoever that they were going to use it. I genuinely thought they weren't. Because it was just kind of it was a fun effect to do, but I didn't think it was anything impressive. So I was like, they're just gonna, here's something cool they could probably share between each other and then never look at it again. But they actually used it. That was pretty cool. And that
also says a lot to your skill too.
Yeah, it's a bit of an ego stroke, not gonna lie. So it was pretty cool. So I just wanted to share that.
And I've even said it with my intro. I seriously thought like it's something multiple people worked on for like a month or two, and like, nah, you did it in what, a week?
When I'm ashamed to admit this, but when I actually got started on it was 3 days ago. So 3 days.
So, but at the same time, like it looks like something that a team of people worked on for like a month, and you did it in 3 days. So. It's really amazing quality, man, and I can't wait for people to see it on Friday.
Yeah, so you don't want to do a spoiler view of it here, do you?
I mean, we can.
And it's up to you. It's your intro, and I made it, but it's your intro.
I'm good with doing it. That's why it's like we can, because like if you want to, we can. It's just something that because we're already like 20 minutes in, we haven't even touched our topics.
True, but we're known for tangents anyways.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, go ahead and show it.
Yeah. As soon as we're done this, we got to get on the topics. We can't continue, but this is the last thing. Last dilly dally. Hold on. All right, I don't want it to start prematurely. Let me get it full screen here. All right. I'm assuming everybody's ready. So, boom.
I love watching this. Like this is something I could watch on its own and just watch it over and over. It is that like I don't know if that says like because it's my intro that makes me sound like an egotist, or if it's because like you made it that I'm stroking your ego or something. But this is something I could legit just watch over and over.
I'm glad you like it so much. It was fun doing it. The clips were the easiest thing to do, was to just find them and just record it. I'm still mad that the Mass Effect clip. I downloaded it and it said 720p. Put it in the editing view, 480p. I'm like, fuck you.
It doesn't really detract that much from it. I mean, you can tell the difference, but at the same time, it's just you picked really good scenes, and I think that. Really, the fact that even though it drops down to 480 doesn't really detract as much from it.
Yeah. It was also I'd say like choosing the clips as well was also a bit of a time consumer because I wasn't sure what you would want most. I was going to ask you, but at the same time I wanted to really go at it myself and see if I could properly, like, since you're my friend, I was like, I've got a very strong sense of what he likes. So it was really a debate on like, do I put Fallout? Do I put Mass Effect? Do I put What of 40K do I put? Things like that. So it really just came down to I went through the things I knew you loved the most, which is Mass Effect, StarCraft, and 40K. So I decided to narrow it down to that list, and that's how I did this. So once the clips were chosen, I then put them in. I had to edit them down significantly, cut out their audio, and then I had to find the right music that wouldn't, get copywritten. So, which then came down to what game music should I use? So I went to the Dawn of War series, and I used the Angels of Death theme from one of the Dawn of War.
Awesome! I thought that sounded familiar.
Yeah, it's the Angels of Death theme from Dawn of War, the first game. I know YouTube is pretty forgiving about those, and plus with how little of it, I only use 15 seconds. That's pure fair use right there. So if you ever get hit for that, tell me, because that's bullshit. That's 15 seconds. Yeah. You should not get hit for that at all.
I'll be like, you bastards! No.
All right, we'll stop playing that on loop. But yeah, so now. On to the topics, and before we do, I should welcome any newbies who have entered the chat. Moraine, what's up, Moraine? Greetings, glorious geeks. Greeting, glorious... I was gonna say ho, but that would sound like an insult to anybody who doesn't,
understand the
joke. Welcome, Moraine. Martin Holsworth, welcome. Arch has made comments on the Blood Angels saying he liked them, but I'm unsure if they are his favorite. Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. I'm not sure they're his favorite. I know he likes them, but the thing is, most people do. Most people love Sanguinius and the Blood Angels as a whole, so...
I'll say this. Out of the Loyal Legions, they are my second favorite. White Scars forever. White Scars are absolutely fucking amazing. And now, before I did my Legion series, I never would have said that, but after doing it, now I love the fucking White Scars now. They're awesome.
I understand. It's just they're certainly not my favorites. I think my top 3.
It would be Imperial Fist,
Black
Space
Templars,
Wolves.
Imperial Fists, Space Wolves.
Oh no, I was going by Legion, you cheater.
Oh. Well, Legion. Okay, what's my top 3 Legions then?
I was gonna say Imperial Fist, Space Wolves, and then probably Blood Angels.
Correct. Well done, lad.
And mine would probably be pretty easy to guess too. Actually, my second and third might not be.
Let's see. Thousand Suns. White Scars. Third. Blood Angels?
No.
Okay, who's third?
Death Guard.
Oh, that's right.
Which is funny, because in my top 3, 2 of them are opposing sides of chaos.
True. Let's see. So,
Nameless Scholar likes Night Lords.
Yeah.
Night Lords are fun too. Let's not fucking split hairs.
Night Lords are crazy, insane terrorists.
They are, but when it comes to sector-wide compliance, they have lower kill counts than everyone else.
Yeah.
So they're the moral good guys.
Sure. We'll go with that.
They kill less people, so they've got to be better than the others.
Well, technically, if we're going by body count, don't the Luna Wolves / the Sons of Horus have the lowest pre-heresy? Because
I don't believe so. I think it still goes to the Night Lords. Either Night Lords or probably Alpha Legion.
I'm pretty damn sure it's Horus's Legion, because he was renowned for his diplomacy, his skills with being able to read and manipulate people.
Well,
he was a master at it, so he was able to conquer entire systems just by interacting and communicating, without shooting a single bolt around. So I'm pretty sure he had the lowest body count pre-heresy.
I would normally agree with you, except for just before the heresy. You have the case of 6319, which was Terra. And then you have the Interex And there's one more. No,
I guess,
no,
I
because
guess,
right after that
I guess
was that.
one thing to also mention is we are talking about human body count. We're not talking about Xenos, right?
Oh no, I'm talking overall human
Oh,
and
I was talking about human.
well, even the
If we're
Interact and
talking,
6319 were both human.
yeah, well, those cases are, but those are still very like specific ones. If we're talking like legions, like for example, the World Eaters.
Oh, they probably have the highest.
Their body count's fucking ridiculous. Like they didn't even bother with diplomacy. Fuck communication. Just attack, take the place, and move on. If we're talking Night Lords terrorized and did some fucked up shit to conquer worlds, which did include a decent body count. So,
well, so the reason why I think they have the lowest death counts because when they would go into a system, they would go to one planet, kill most of that one planet's population, but they would spare the rest of the planets because they would show the rest of the planets what they did. Like, don't fuck with us, and they bet we're not going. Someone actually brought up a good point, and this is actually I'm going to say this, and this is like one of the few cool parts of Word Bearers lore that I found. And this is so cool. This actually, I think, brought them up in the standing a little bit in my least favorites. But I think they still ended up being my least favorite. But this was actually pretty fucking cool. Lorgar should have the lowest amount of body counts because of his diplomacy. Before Lorgar came, the Word Bearers would have a chaplain.
Well, keep in mind that the Word Bearers also were the slowest to conquer planets. So you have to offshoot the body count. You have to offshoot it by how many worlds the Word Bearers actually took, because they were, even compared to the Imperial Fists, the Imperial Fists would stay on a planet for a significant amount of time once it was taken to reinforce the planet, make sure it's defensible, make sure that
I must fortify this area.
Well, yeah, they set up fortifications, bases of operations. They made one common thing that used to be said is Horus and most of the other legions, their primary goal and purpose was to take the worlds and conquer the Imperium, while Perturabo and, well, more so the Imperial Fists and Rogel Dorn were building the Imperium. So that was more their purpose than it was to conquer. Not that the Imperial Fists didn't conquer worlds, they did, but they were more focused on reinforcing and building up the Imperium as opposed to conquering it, which was the main goal of Primarchs and legions like Horus's, or even Leman Russ or Angron, Corvus Corax. Most of those guys, their primary purpose was to take worlds. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
Well, the thing I was saying is what they would do is they would send a chaplain to like a fortification and be like, surrender to us and we won't kill you. And it was just a lone Astartes who would walk up and do it. And if they would surrender, they would surrender and it would all go relatively peacefully. If they didn't surrender and say killed the chaplain, then almost the entire legion would swarm them and fuck them up because legionnaires. So I thought that was really cool because it's literally like they would send one Astartes, be like, we want you, but we want you to come peacefully. And there have been accounts where just the one chaplain who would go out, if he were to get attacked by a fortification, he would kill hundreds of humans before he finally fell. So these were some badass dudes. Like, it's actually something cool the Word Bearers did.
Yeah. Alright, Asmagon, I can't wait for you to read the Alfarius Primarch book. There is some interesting bits about the Fists. I'm sure there is, but when it comes to the Alpha Legion, and specifically Alfarius Omegon and Rogel Dorn, keep in mind, like, Rogel killed Alfarius or Omegon. I'm not sure. And
I thought it was Gilliman.
What? No.
I thought it was Gilliman.
No, Rogel Dorn was during the Horus Heresy, he broke away from wherever he was operating out of as the main guy defending the Imperium. He went into battle and fucking went ham on Alpharius or Omegon, one of them. It wasn't both, and he cut one of their heads off.
Okay, because I'm looking up now just to double check that, because I could have sworn it was Gilliman for some reason.
I'm certain it was Rogel. In terms of legions, I'm an Iron Warriors guy. I'm sorry, man. Your Primarch's a baby.
Well, okay, I will say this. Now, it is... Perturabo was considered the smartest, like the most intellectually intelligent of the Primarchs, which I thought was cool. But he was just a cold bastard.
And intelligence doesn't do you a lot of favors when you're emotionally compromised.
I mean, that's fair.
And I can't... Other than Angron, who was more emotionally compromised than Pert? And hell, the guy slaughtered a shit ton of his own guys just because they weren't performing as well as he wanted to. Okay, I think that's... did Angron... before certain moments in the lore, like early on, did Angron even do that shit? I know later for sure he did. Like, killed some of his own fucking men.
Oh, absolutely he did.
Early on?
When the Emperor reunited him with what was then the Warhounds Legion, he killed the first 7 captains with his bare hands.
I don't recall that.
Yeah, because he killed the first captain, walked in, tried to talk him down, he killed him. Second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, all of them walk in, he killed all of them. And finally, the 8th captain, the 8th Assault Company Captain Karn, was finally able to withstand the ass spanking that was.
Oh, yeah. Now I remember. Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
I was like, this sounds very unfamiliar, but then you mentioned Karn, I was like, now it's clicking. Yeah,
look,
I remember.
Karn is my favorite character in 40K. You better know that I know that.
I didn't remember that. Okay, so yeah, those sounds like they're just as bad as one another then, because
okay, yeah, you were right. It was Dorn.
Yeah, okay.
Then maybe it was Gilliman who killed Omegon? Or question mark? I don't know.
Sure. I just know that Rogel Dorn killed one of the twins. Mainly because he was being hounded by them at the time. Like they were in charge of like doing all like the fucky shit, like the sneaky, like let me sabotage shit, let me blow shit up. Hell, they even to taunt him, they were blowing up like any kind of like statues or memorials of him on worlds he had established. So they were doing shit like that to like pick at him to the point where he just lost his shit and killed one of them. Although, depending on who you ask, plenty of people believe that it was a stand-in for one of Alpharius or Omegon. It wasn't actually one of them. I tend to lean towards that he actually killed one of the twins. That's me.
Yeah, but it's looking like Dorn killed Omegon and Gilliman killed Alpharius.
Okay.
I mean, now granted, both of them could still be alive because fucking Alpha Legion.
Yeah, that's a common thing a lot of like the Alpha Legion fans will say is like, oh, well, neither were killed. Rogel Dorn killed a stand-in and Gilliman killed a stand-in.
What no, even in the lore,
stand-ins.
Well, no, even in the lore, it is a possibility. It's just like at the same time, it's like even though that's a possibility, it's kind of stupid if it is one. No, I just looked because I just looked it up. Jorge, it was one was killed by Dorn. The first one was killed by Dorn at the Battle of Pluto, and then the second one, which was confirmed to be Alpharius, was killed by Gilliman post heresy. So that would mean Dorn did kill Omegon. I literally just looked it up. That's why I was kind of like. I was like, wait a minute, what did Angron do? It's because I'm in the process of reading. I was like, I'm not trying to be rude, but at the same time, I'm trying to look it up at the same time.
No, I get you. Well, anyway. Another tangent aside. First topic to Geekus Ratings podcast. 30 minutes in. Finally on it.
No, 40 minutes in.
No, we're 39, 33 seconds.
Okay.
So, ha! I win. We're seconds earlier than that.
Martin Halsworth. This is why I'm not a huge fan of the Alpha Legion. Cool in theory, horrible in execution.
In certain ways, yeah. Angron can't beat a named character in all caps, says Crown of the Corn. Let's see.
If only it weren't true.
Well, now I think about it, yeah. He fought Lehman. It was...
He fought Gilliman.
Fought Gilliman. Yeah, every named character he's gone up against, he hasn't beaten. Like, the closest I could think to, like, beating was maybe when Lehman and him squared off. But even then, it was more of a draw.
I would say Gilliman, because he forced Gilliman to retreat, because it was him and Lorgar. And that's when Lorgar turned him into a demon prince.
Right.
But anyway, Blood Angels game.
Yeah, anyway. So, for those of you who don't know, which is probably plenty of folks, so uphold the glory of the Blood Angels in this new Warhammer 40k strategy game. So, Slytherin, the creators of the Gladius game, which I only just got, like, last night. I played about an hour of it, and it's interesting. It's interesting to play it so far. But, you know, if they're making this, I'm very curious what this is going to look like, since Gladius, just from an hour in, was actually pretty engaging and fun. I see, like, crossovers from, like, the Civ games and a little bit of, like, Total War in there, which is cool.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to play more of it later on. I was surprised the whole game was only, like, 2 gigs.
I will say that Gladius is a game, if you do like Civilization-style games, it will be a fun game, especially if you love 40k, but it gets a lot better with the DLC.
Yeah. No, and Crown of the Corn says they also made Armageddon, which I haven't played and know nothing about. But I did see
haven't
it
played
in,
it either.
I did see it in, like, their repertoire, and I don't know anything about it. I just know about the Gladius game that they made. So that's, like, the one I know for certain. So they're I'm so tongue-tied today. I don't know why. But Warhammer 40k Battle Sector, that's the name of the game. From just what I've gone over, and I'm not going to read the whole article. I'm just going to give you guys, like, a gist. But the idea is the game takes place on Baal, and it's under attack by the Tyranids, and it's basically taking place either during or just after is it the decimation of Baal, or is it another word?
I think it is, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, I'm pretty sure I said it to you.
My Blood Angels lore is not very strong.
The devastation of Baal. Okay, so yeah, that. It basically takes place during or just after the devastation of Baal by the Tyranid Hive Fleet. And the game has a single player campaign, and it's a turn-based strategy game. From the trailer, which I'll play in the background for you guys now. I'll keep the volume low. There's not really any dialogue or anything, so it's mostly just on-screen stuff. From what I saw from this trailer, which, by the way, I do want to compliment the trailer's editing, because I kind of like the style of, like, frozen in time and showing, like, this curved text and stuff like that. I kind of like that as a way to advertise your game. I said intense turn-based action. So I don't know if it's gonna be like XCOM or XCOM rules or not. That's like the idea I got from the trailer and from the description. Is it's gonna be similar to XCOM, but then again, some of the screenshots I saw looked much larger scale to me than something like XCOM. So I'm not sure. It's a turn-based strategy, and I'm sure it's gonna be a lot of fun. But at the same time, like, what are your thoughts, Litus?
If they do XCOM with squads, you would never see me again, because I would spend all my time playing that, because I love XCOM.
Yeah,
especially Blood Angels, like, I would be all over that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So I'm very curious if it does play like XCOM, like I suspect from the descriptions that I read in the article. This will be a very fun game, and 40k fans will be getting, thankfully, another good 40k game, which we sadly don't have a ton of. Like, I really hope it lives up to, like, what I'm what I speculate it'll be like in my own head. But some of the other, like, screenshots, I don't know if the article shows them, but I did see. Here's one. Right here. So this screenshot is there's others, but like this is like the primary one. You could very much see some of the Gladius influence in the sense that you have these like 5-man groups of Space Marines.
Mm-hmm.
And the part that makes me suspect XCOM style, but with like squads, like squad XCOM, as opposed to like individual characters, is this layout. You have like what I suspect to be a very easily maneuverable and rotatable map. You have terrain pieces. I'm very curious to see if it plays as I suspect it does, based on these screenshots that we see.
Right.
Again, Marine says, Asgon, how can a turn-based strategy game be fast-paced? That makes no goddamn sense. Well, technically it does, from the sense of if what you can do per turn is streamlined. Like, a turn-based in the style like maybe like Total War or Civ games, you might have like 30 different things you got to do per turn, so the late game, your turns will be like an hour long. Thank you, Ludus, for the super chat. Thank you. Shout out Ludus, XCOM for life. Yeah.
You said thank you, Ludus. That was Nathan.
Ugh. Thank you for correcting me. Thank you, Nathan. I said that because he said shout out Ludus, and then my brain went to Ludus, and thank you for correcting me there.
You're fine. But now, so to kind of play devil's advocate, you could even argue that Total War Warhammer has fast-paced combat because the combat is separate from the turn-based system.
Yes, the combat itself, you could argue, is. But then again, you can pause it, you can fast forward it, you can slow it down.
Yeah.
So,
but there is a way to argue that it is fast-paced, especially like early on when you don't have massive 20-unit armies.
Yeah.
And you're doing like 5 stack versus 5 or 5-unit stack versus 5-unit stack. That's going to be some fast-paced combat right there. Like, oh look, 2 minutes and it's done.
Yeah, like that argument could definitely be made, but I'm talking more like late game. Like late game when you have like 10 different armies and all max 20 stack, you have like 30 different territories and areas you have to protect and bases. When you have that much stuff, your turn's going to be a decent amount of time.
Oh yeah.
My guess is when it comes to this, it doesn't have like that big scale stuff like building bases and establishing terrain and conquering control points. By the looks of it, again, based on just the screenshots, it's just going to be like specific missions as opposed to something big scale like that. So we're looking more at you're set in the board, you have your mission, and you have your set pieces to work with, and the enemy has its set pieces, and then you go up against them in XCOM style. That's my assumption. Now, of course, we don't have all the details yet. This article doesn't even have all the details. It just has a lot of them, thankfully. So we do know quite a bit.
And to be fair, it was also just announced, too.
Yeah, it was just announced. This is like brand new news.
This is something I think popped up either yesterday or... No, this popped up yesterday for me. So...
If I found out about it when you told me. Like, you're my source of news on this one.
And I found out about it literally like right before I told you. So I think this was yesterday's thing. So it's one of those things. It's like, ooh, we have news.
Martin Holzer says XCOM ? Might be good, might not. Depends on where they go with it. That's true. Again, just based on like the screenshots and the basic description, it sounds really cool in concept, but I'm jaded with the gaming industry right now. And on top of that, 40K games have, let's just say, a reputation for being hit and miss. And the misses have been more plentiful than hits so far. So I'm curious to see how it'll come out.
I know right now the two big games, I would call this like one of the games coming out.
And
what's the other one? Grim Dawn?
Grim Dawn?
The fucking 40K, the 40K version of Vermintide?
Darktide.
Yeah. I don't know why I was thinking Grim Dawn. Anyway, because it sounds like Grim Dark. Darktide, this one, and Total War Warhammer 3. Of the three that are coming out, I'll say this is probably the one that I'm most optimistic with right now.
Out of those that I'm most optimistic, I'm optimistic for Darktide because the Vermintide devs have a lot of experience with Vermintide, so I sense that that'll translate very well with Darktide. So I'm most optimistic. Personally, I'm more optimistic for that than I am, say, this or Total War Warhammer 3. So that's like where I'm at. I'm still not like majorly like, oh my god, this is gonna be great on any of them, because that's just how things have like how the cookies have crumbled, if you will, with like games as a whole lately. Like I was looking forward to Cyberpunk, and then all that shit happened. So at this point, I'm jaded with the industry as a whole. So I'm not openly like excited or positive for any of them. I'm healthily. I'm looking forward to them, but I'm not like gonna go out of my way and be super jubilant about it. Like I'm ready for them. I do want to play them, but I'm not assuming anything.
Jorge says, Ludus, don't forget the new 40K mobile game. As an honest gamer, mobile games don't exist.
I don't play them. And
if I do, I play the ones that like run themselves in the background.
What is this? I know nothing of this. What is this mobile 40K game that you speak of? What?
Probably garbage. I'll say this. I actually did the Horus Heresy Legions one, which is the 40K version of Hearthstone. And I thought that was kind of fun, but it's just something I couldn't keep up with. I was like, nah, I'm not interested.
Okay. Huh. Could you pause the video on the Death Company Dead Dudes just to check out if they are firstborn or not? Oh, sorry, in the video?
Yeah, because he's been wondering if the Death Company are firstborn.
Yeah, I'm assuming this is the shot I'm looking at right here.
I can't tell because I have to have YouTube on my phone, so it's what would already be kind of painful for me to see.
Well, the helmet variant is definitely firstborn.
Then they would probably almost definitely
have to be firstborn. This is definitely firstborn right here. These guys are. I don't know if all the units are. Hold on. Let's see if we can get a better view. It does, like I said, it does take place during or right after the devastation of Baal from the Tyranid Hive Fleet, so I don't presume there will be too many. Well, actually, no. Weren't Primaris involved in that?
Oh, I don't know. I hate the Primaris lore.
I'm trying to remember if they were introduced. They weren't introduced through the devastation of Baal, but I'm pretty sure that occurred around the time that they were introduced, and I think the book included them. Chat. Those who are in the chat, if you've read the Devastation of Baal, are Primaris introduced / involved in the events that occur? I believe they are.
Carnage is saying they weren't.
They weren't. Okay. So they should just be firstborn Marines then.
I'll say this: they had a really good opportunity to make Primaris a thing, and they just shat all over it.
Well, the way they handled it was very piss poor. Very piss poor.
Well, when the Raptors were a thing, those were kind of like Primaris. And they just shat all over that. And they're like, instead of going this way where a Primarch actually develops this, let's just make it some random tech breed.
Yeah. And Gulliman was involved in it. It's just, it was primarily Belisarius' call. Most of what
Gilliman was involved in it in as much as he told Ball to do it.
Pretty much. He gave Call his DNA.
Yeah.
And past that, that's as far as I know his involvement in it, other than just instructing him to start the process.
When you said that, all I could imagine was him jerking off into a cup.
I'm sure Yvrain would love to find that cup then. Yeah.
I'm going to do to this cup what I did to the Imperium.
Just going through. I don't see any oh, hold on. It's hard to tell because of the angle, but that looks like a Primaris pattern helmet on that. What is he supposed to be? A captain or a librarius?
I don't know. I can't really see. I'm not going to lie to you. It's hard for me to see.
He's clearly a psyker, so he has to be,
and
right?
The Nameless Scholar says, what I would have to do is have the 3 new gene seed organs invented in the span of 11 millennia.
Okay,
well, no, because even when...
I'm right. Yes, thank you. Corn says, okay, the Primaris and Guilliman actually stepped in during the last second to save the blood. That's why I thought they were involved in this.
Okay.
So yeah, what saved the Blood Angels and Ball was Guilliman and his Primaris. So that's why I was so confident about it.
And the Nameless Scholar, there's actually speculation that when Korax created the Raptors, that I don't know if they necessarily had the specific organs that the Primaris do, but they were bigger, stronger, and faster than regular Space Marines. They were essentially pre-Primaris.
Yeah.
So I think if they would have gone with that and built off of that, then that would have been a lot better than doing it the way they did. Yeah. But what the fuck do I know?
But yeah, all in all, I'm looking. I'll just say it because it's easier to say this to try and like word it differently. I'm looking forward to this game. I'm not assuming anything.
Right.
How about you?
Of the 3, I'm actually looking forward to all 3. But again, I really hold no clear opinions yet. Just like, oh, cool, they're going to be Warhammer games. Yeah, this looks like the style they're going to be, and that's about it.
I understand that. All right, so let me just go through the chat, see if someone. Moraine left. Bye, Moraine. I know you already left, but bye anyway. They are symbolic. Damn it, Snow fucked up my internet over. Primaris were not involved as far as I remember. I think this game is set after Devastation of Ball. Yeah, like I said, I don't know the exact timeline. I know it's highly involved. It's pretty much about the Devastation of Ball. I just don't know if it takes place during or just after the Devastation. I believe it takes place just after, based on like what I read in the article, because it's about like cleaning up the Tyranids that are still on Ball, and that's like what the campaign is about. Is just kind of like that, them like chasing them off or killing the rest of them, something like that. So my general idea is it's taking place just after the Devastation of Ball storyline or the events that occurred there, based on what I was able to pick up from the article's information.
The Nameless Scholar said, but as far as we know, it took tens of millennia for the Emperor to invent 19 gene seeds. How much would it take with the many Mechanicum Archmagi over the span of 11 millennia? Again, I don't know if they created the extra organs, but I know that Korax, essentially his last apothecarium, who was a junior apothecarium, and some rando tech priests did it in the course of, I think, months. So
I don't know the exact timeline myself. I know that. Wait, are you just talking about something very specific amongst the Primaris?
Yeah, I'm talking about when I'm talking about when Korax created the Raptors. I think it took like months, maybe a year or two. But at the same time, it's like Korax did it with him, a junior apothecary, and a random tech priest. So, and these were really what the Primaris were, what was going to turn into the Primaris. They were bigger, they were stronger, they were faster. Again, I'm not 100% sure about the extra organs, if they had them or not, but they essentially functioned the same way as the Primaris do now. So if like 3 or 4 people can do it in like months to maybe a couple years.
Yeah, but amongst those was a Primarch.
Yeah.
Who is Big E Jr. So in the case of the normal Primaris, so that didn't happen. Guilliman's involvement was next to non-existent.
Right.
So and it's why it's so much more unbelievable to me anyway.
No, I agree. Like I said, if they would have stuck with the Raptors and stuck with making them more stable as time goes on, to making a stable way to create them, that would have made a hell of a lot more sense. Like, instead of making the focus that Call did this all behind the scenes, making it instead, over the course of the 10,000 years that they were trying to make the Raptors more and more stable.
Yeah. And Martin Holsworth said this little, the Primaris being shoehorned into every chapter regardless of whether or not lore-wise they would have allowed it was dumb. Which is true. Like, GW wrote the Primaris in a fucking bottle. Like, they this little pocket of the lore they wrote them in, and they didn't at all take in the information that already existed in the universe. They're just like, oh, they exist now. Everybody's okay with them. And amongst the chapters that just accepted them was the Black Templars. Who here thinks for even a remote second that the Black Templars would not have a problem with what they would see very much as Guilliman's fucking mutant monstrosities onto the Emperor's work, that is the Astartes?
That would be a funny reaction.
They just something tells me they'd have a fucking problem with it, considering how they feel about what they call heresy. Just saying, they would not go over well. And I just don't see that working out at fucking all. And the fact that GW was like, oh, only like these like three or four chapters had a problem with it. I'm like, fuck you. No. The chapters they listed, amongst them wasn't the fucking crap. I know it. I'm certain I know the chapters that they excluded from the accepting Primaris openly. Ah, fuck, I can't remember. Ah, damn it. But anyway, the chapters they listed were chapters that I actually wouldn't picture having like the biggest problem with it. Nowhere near as much as like the Black Templars. The Templars would not have just accepted them full on. And yes, I do have a Black Templar army as terms of minis that are Primaris. But the reason for that is I like the models. I don't like the lore. So to me, they're just true scale Marines. They're not actual Primaris for me. They're just higher detail true scale Marines for me. That's why my Black Templar army is made up of Primaris. Not because I actually like them. Because I don't. And they had such an opportunity to make Primaris work, and they just really fucked it up.
Didn't.
The execution was so piss poor. The models are great. The lore is garbage. They wrote them in a fucking, like, little pocket of the lore that they didn't even bother to consider the rest of their lore at all when they did it. Not at all. Got real quiet.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was looking through our other topics, and also I accidentally clicked off the stream on my phone, so I didn't click back on it.
Yeah, and in terms of other topics, let's see. I have them.
We have if Emperor took the Siege March and the Admech instead of allying with them, the Dropsite Massacre, and the very brief Zerg v Tyranid.
Which you want to do first?
It's up to you, man. I'm good with doing it in that order.
Yeah, we could do the what if first. So the next topic was one I just thought I'm just curious to get Ludus's thoughts on this one in particular, and chat's thoughts would be interesting. But it's a what if scenario, as if the Emperor during the Unification Wars, or actually technically this would be after the Unification Wars on Earth. Once he went to Mars, as we all know in official canon, he didn't want to fight them because the fight would not be necessarily in his favor, no matter what, because they were pretty well established, they were pretty strong, they were about on par, if not better off than his own forces, even with Astartes and what he had
Titans
to work with.
Titans are a thing.
He wasn't looking at an easy fight. So we know in official canon and official lore that he just allied with them. Like, he shook hands, read up an agreement, and they became allies as opposed to fighting each other for dominance. So officially, even to this day, they're still technically part of the Imperium, but technically not. Like, they're not necessarily bound by anything the Imperium wants them to do. They just work
They're so
with them.
powerful they don't give a shit about it.
And
They're like, we're gonna do our own
that's
thing.
why no one in the
Okay.
Imperium fucks with them, because they make all their guns, all their weapons, all their ships, all their tanks. It'd be pretty fucked if they fucked with them, right? So that begs the question, though. The what if scenario is, what if the Emperor had not had the foresight to ally with them, as opposed to fighting them? What if he had tried to force them under his Imperium's dominion and his new imperial truth?
I think there's a convenient truth here. I think had the Emperor done that, the Horus Heresy wouldn't have been a thing. Because I believe the Emperor would have just gotten curb stopped. I believe the Emperor and the Astartes would have gotten curb stopped at Mars.
You believe they'd get it in curb stopped?
Oh, yeah.
I generally believe it would not be a curb stop. It would not be a one-way thing. Because like I said, at the time, the Mechanicum and what he had for forces were about on par, if not a little less in his favor. So I'd suspect the fight would be extensive. It would take a very long time, and I do agree with you that that Mars would win, that the AdMech would win, but I don't suspect it would be an easy or quick fight at all.
Well, here's why I suggest that. So this is also based off of a couple of different books. This is based off the book Mechanicum and off a combined story in let's see what Galaxy in Flames and Flight of the Eisenstein. So the first one in Mechanicum, it talks about the forces of the different forged cities on Mars. There are one or two Imperator class Titans dotted around, and there are a bunch of other Titans as well. And then, of course, you have the Skitarii forces. The Skitarii 1v1 would not match up to an Astartes, but the Titans, that's where you start getting into trouble.
Titans in their larger mechs.
Yeah, and
because they had intermediate mechs between Skitarii and the Titans. Yeah. They had some intermediate level tech as well that I think would definitely make up the difference with Astartes fighting them. Also, at the time, I can't remember. Did Astartes, before the Mechanicum got involved, have things like bolters and the equipment we typically associate with them now? I don't think they did they?
What was it? Sorry, I had something pop up on my news feed for Bethesda. But I'm sorry, what was it?
Before the Mechanicum and the Imperium were allies, did the Astartes, as because typically we associate Astartes with like having bolters, their ceramite armor, and
I think they still had bolters.
Did they,
or at least bolter equivalent? I think it was bolter equivalent.
I believe they had something like a bolter equivalent, but I'm not sure that they had bolters. I'm pretty sure the AdMech gave them that. Yeah, I could be wrong, but that's from my recollection. A lot of that came from the Mechanicum. Or at the very least, the streamlining production of it, for sure.
But now, and so the other part of it, which is what I was talking about, the combined story between Galaxy in Flames and Flight of the Eisenstein, there are scenes where the DSE Ray, a single Imperator class Titan, opens fire on Loyalist forces and just gives them a really shitty day. And that's just one.
Jorge and Carcorn say they had bolters before the AdMech. Really? Because I'm pretty sure the AdMech were involved in the production of bolters. I don't know. Maybe you guys are probably right, but I don't know. It just sounds wrong. Well, bolters.
So my logic goes to I believe they would just be seriously outgunned.
Oh yeah, they definitely would be. It's just like
that's why I think it would just be a curb stomping back. Oh, they're invading. See the big thing that looks like a city with guns? Yeah, it's going to shoot you now. Oh, well, fuck. So what I just found out that popped up on my feed is Microsoft is creating a subsidiary. Called Vault, and Vault will essentially handle the ZeniMax and Bethesda will essentially handle all of ZeniMax Studios.
Yes,
So,
all right, I'm right. You guys were wrong. Ha! So, nope, the pre-introduction of the Mechanicum, they did not have bolters. They had what was called the Volkite weapons.
okay.
So, it was so to read it. Unfortunately, so we want me to read the whole thing. It's a paragraph and a half. The bolt gun
Sure.
or bolter is, as it is also known, has been the standard armament of the Adeptus Astartes for as long as Space Marines have defended the Imperium. But this was not always the case. The ancient Space Marine legions once utilized Volkite weapons, a class of powerful thermal ray weapons whose technology is pre-imperial in origin and dates back to the Age of Strife. These combat weapons possess considerable killing power, surpass most other armaments of their size. Unfortunately, Volkite weapons of the various types were difficult to manufacture. Even the most able of the Mechanicum's forges and the demands of the expanding Great Crusade, right there, and the demands of the Great Crusade, which means that at this point, the Great Crusade had begun and they did not have bolters. They were still using Volkite. So in the late 30th millennium, swiftly overwhelming the supply of these relic weapons. Furthermore, Volkite armaments are somewhat lacking in effective range and had high maintenance requirements. So blah, blah, blah. Once they commented, so essentially, the Terran bolter was made in the 31st millennium and had been superseded by the far more flexible and utilitarian Terran bolter. So, ha! I was right. Boom!
Also,
y'all were wrong. I was right. Suck it. I feel great. Sorry.
So the story that just popped up on my newsfeed, Microsoft is creating a subsidiary called Vault, which is handling ZeniMax and all of its subsidiaries, Bethesda, Arcane, Machine Games, so on. And what it looks like is it's also giving them, while they're still owned by Microsoft, it gives them the freedom to do their own thing instead of being directly controlled by Microsoft.
Yeah. Jorge says, I do think the Thunder Warriors had some kind of bolter. Like I said, they had Volkite weapons, which were basically the precursor to the bolter. But the bolter wasn't introduced into the armaments of the Imperium until the 31st millennium. So I just read that off. So no, they did not.
So I do think it would be colossal just due to the amount of firepower that the Mechanicum would have. That Mechanicum would just sweep.
Yeah. I guess that would be like the most simplistic way to put it.
Realistically, what are they going to do to an Imperator class Titan?
And at the time, other than the Emperor using psychic ability, his psychic powers, I can't see how they would combat that. Hey, Lord Metalman, what's up? Welcome to the podcast. How you doing, man? But yeah, I don't see them having an answer to that other than the Emperor pulling some voodoo shit.
Some psyker mumbo jumbo bullshit.
So, other than the psyker mumbo jumbo bullshit, I can't think of their counter for that. So,
and this is why I say that I see them getting curb stomped hard.
Yeah, the Mechanicum had a lot of advantages. It doesn't help as well that the Emperor had just finished fighting on Earth the Unification Wars, so he was ready. He was ready to begin the Crusade, but by no means was he like peak at all. Like he just lost all the Primarchs. He had the Astartes, but he didn't have any of the Primarch generals to help him out. So that's another huge disadvantage against the Mechanicum. So yeah,
Jorge, I'm assuming, is saying Custodes could balance the scale.
Custodes custards.
Custodes would do as much to an Imperator class Titan.
I want to use that. I want to use that so much. From now on, they're not Custodes, they're Custards.
Well, it fits with their armor.
Custards. I love that. I don't care if that was intentional or not. That was great.
They would, but they would do just about as much to an Imperator class Titan as Astartes would. So, yeah. As far as balancing the scales, no, not really.
So I read another entry of the Thunder Warriors that says, following ranged weapons, the Thunder Warriors were armed with an archaic but large and powerful pattern of the standard Astartes bolter, which doesn't make sense based on what I just read, which was the bolter wasn't introduced to the main armaments of the Imperium until the 31st millennium, post the Unification Wars, and the Mechanicum's involvement. So we have differing accounts.
Martin Hallsworth brings up something interesting. Even the psycho powers from Big E would not have been enough to deal with it all. Not all of it, but he would definitely be able to fuck up a Titan or two because Magnus was able to essentially crumble up a Titan with his mind. But it was an Eldar one, so it was made of like tissue paper or some shit. I don't know. It's Eldar. They don't matter. They're not people. Eldar aren't people. They're just inconveniences.
They're knife-eared douchebags.
They are.
Custard boys, yeah. I want that to be a thing. I'm gonna make that an emoji on my Discord. Custard boys. We could do that later. Main armament, that is the difference. That could be the factor that we're arguing over, is that bolters might have, in an archaic version of them, existed amongst the Volkite weapons. That could be like the detail that isn't there that would connect what Karneth Korn found versus what I have here. Other than that, the only other answer is we have two differing accounts on the introduction of the bolter to the Imperium's armaments. So I guess if that is the case, then we're both right. If
Question
that's
mark?
not, then I guess it's just which source you trust. I guess it was what it would come down to. I don't know.
Sure.
I'll go with the one that says I'm right.
So to kind of keep us on track for once, and as much as I derail the fuck out of us sometimes, do you want to go ahead and drop onto the Dropsite Massacre? Because we're down to about 40 minutes left. If we do the Dropsite Massacre for about 20, 30 minutes, then we can do the Zergan Tyranid for about 10, which leaves about another 5 to 10 for Q&A at the end.
We could just drop the Dropsite Massacre one, to be fair. Like, I did just do a lore video on it. The only reason I wanted to discuss it was like get your thoughts on like the events.
Oh no, that's why I was saying like
if we're crunched for time, I'd rather not rush that.
Well, no, we're not crunched for time. It'll work. It's just that was saying like because we've kind of already said all we could about the Admech and the Emperor one.
Yeah, that I agree, but we can cut out the Dropsite one so we can talk the other stuff.
No, we have 40 minutes. We should have enough time. It's just I was just trying to make sure that we still had enough time for a Q&A because we like doing that at the end.
Right. Well,
because I like talking about the Dropsite. Remember, Horus Heresy, man. I love Horus Heresy.
Right. Lord Middleman, yeah, by the way, as I got nice work on that video. Thank you. Yeah, it took me a while to make that one, but I'm happy it came out all right. I'm happy most people liked that one. Hey, Gavin Isaacs, welcome to the podcast. So yeah, on the topic of the Dropsite Massacre, as you know, I just did a lore video on it, so it's freshest in my mind, all the details, or most of the details. I can't say I remember all the details of anything in any of the lore events. It's too much. No human.
Don't you just hate that when you're doing lore videos? Like, I just finished this. Wait a minute, what was it about?
Yeah, there's so much information, honestly.
Yeah.
I was surprised I was able to summarize it, because the Dropsite Massacre has some fucking details, man. There is so... the worst part is I was using the Lexiconum and the wiki, and I went off of a couple other people's longer form lore videos on it, and my fucking god, were some of the accounts differing. So, fucking straight... some of the stuff that was said in the wiki... on the Lexiconum was like, nah, fam, it was the other way around, or nah, fam, it was slightly different. So it was like, what the fuck do I listen to? Now, logic would normally say Lexiconum, but some of the stuff in the Lexiconum wasn't as detailed as the wiki. So I'm what the fuck?
So for me, because of the research I've done and the discrepancies I've seen, not just from the wiki and Lexiconum, but from the Lexiconum and the books, I tend to trust the wiki a lot more than the Lexiconum.
I trust the Lexiconum and the wiki both, because most of the information both confirm each other. It's just specific details that there's differs. Like, with the Dropsite Massacre, 90% of what was in the Lexiconum was also in the wiki. The small stuff was like, for example, what weapons, for example, Fulgrim and Ferris were wielding. On the wiki, it's a flame sword, energy flame sword, whatever the fuck that's called. For Ferris, and for Fulgrim was wielding 2 swords. He was wielding his main one, which Ferris, I guess, knocked out of his hand, and they also had the silver short sword blade of sorts. And then in the Lexiconum, it says that Ferris was wielding some kind of like hammer or like blunt weapon.
So the at Istvan 5, Ferris was wielding Fireblade, which he forged for Fulgrim. Fulgrim was wielding Forgebreaker, which was the hammer that he had made for Ferris. Ferris had beat him almost completely, and Fulgrim reached for the Lair Blade, and when he did, it kind of gave him like this super strength.
I said that.
Yeah. So it's so their loadouts were Ferris had the Fireblade, Fulgrim had the hammer and the Lair Blade.
Yeah, that's what differs though, because the wiki said blade. That spoke to that Fulgrim was wielding primarily a blade and also the corrupt short sword / sword of Slaanesh. The Lexiconum completely changed their loadouts. So that was like for when it comes to researching those lore videos, that's like the most annoying thing, is when you get those little details that you're like, okay, which do I write?
And no, Karna's Corner, I wasn't saying that Forgebreaker is what killed Ferris Manus. I was saying that's what Fulgrim was using when Ferris was getting the better of him. And then after Ferris got the better of him, that's when he drew the Lair Blade.
Yeah. And like Karna's Corner says, it's 100% Silver Sword of Lair killed Ferris. Yes, I agree. Both accounts said that. The part that was differing was what loadout other than that was being wielded. Because in the Lexiconum, I'm pretty sure it said that Ferris was using a blunt weapon of some kind. And in the wiki, it said he was wielding a flaming sword of some kind.
Yeah.
So like that's what I'm talking about, is like when it comes to researching those videos, little details like that are what like throw me off. But I usually just go with what sounds more correct. Or what matches my existing knowledge of the lore.
But as far as like my opinion on the Dropsite Massacre, it's actually one of my favorite battles of the Horus Heresy.
Yeah.
The thing I love though is the Salamanders retreating and getting to the Iron Warriors and essentially getting like right on their doorstep before they realize like, oh shit, open fire.
Yeah, as I read it, like that was pretty fucked up. And the thing is, the signal, this is consistent in both the Lexiconum and the wiki, but on a video I watched, the guy didn't mention it, so I don't know if in the books it differs this. But based on what the Lexiconum and wiki both said, Horus's signal for the betrayal was like a flare, like a giant orange flare that he shot up from the fortress he was held up in. And he shot that off when he noticed both the Raven Guard and the Salamanders retreating, which I find it interesting that Ferris Manus was so like dead set on kicking Fulgrim's ass. He didn't realize his 2 flanks were retreating. No, he did realize. He didn't care. Well, that too. Well, the thing is, the way it reads in both of, again, the Lexiconum, and I get that the Lexiconum and wiki simplify it so they leave out details, but as it reads in those, it seemed like he just didn't pay attention.
Well, okay, so this is from researching the legions and their Primarchs as well. It's kind of like reading like 5 different things to get all the details. Corvus Corax and Vulcan, all 3 of them met up and they're like, we're retreating, we need you to come with us. He's like, no, I must get Fulgrim.
Yeah, he was
okay, Joker, bye.
The thing is,
I will get you, Batman.
Yeah, it was very dumb either way, whether he was like consciously aware that his flanks just left him. But
oh no, they actually come up to him like, we're fucking retreating, and he's like, okay, I'm going to charge in.
But either way, they still did kind of leave him. And whether I don't mean to phrase that like they abandoned him, but they did leave him. Which it's his own fault. He could have retreated as well, but even if he did, well, that wouldn't have changed much.
Not much, really.
No,
well, he might have survived, but it would have increased his
Might
chance of
have.
survival by a little, but not really.
Not really, because it was pretty devastating. Can you imagine that, by the way? Because on they didn't even make it all the way back to the drop site where the Iron Warriors were dropping like walls and like little barricades from orbit and shit. Or not
They were
orbit,
dropping
but
bunkers from
they
orbit.
were
That's so
dropping fucking.
cool.
They were, which is cool. It's just cool to read. Like my mind, the image. I kind of want to draw it, but I don't think I'd do it justice. Just that idea of like this fucking like little bunker dropping, just to like. I'm sure like the Raven Guard and the Salamanders saw that. We're like, oh my god, that looks like great. Yes, we have a fortified position we can back off to, and let these guys who aren't exhausted and beat the fuck up can take over. Oh my god, the horror!
Like, oh shit!
The horror that they must have felt when they were calling on the Vox communicators, like, "Hey, send a first aid," and the Iron Warriors just stood there, and they looked at their flanks, and the Night Lords are just like, "Yeah, what's up?" They looked at their other flank. Word Bearers are like, "Yeah, we're cool here," and it's just like, "Oh shit, why are they not talking to us?" Then Orange Flare comes up.
The way I read it. The way I read it for the Salamanders is Vulcan didn't realize it until literally the last second. It was like suspicious, but he's like, "Why aren't they answering us?" Well, Perturabo is kind of a dick to begin with, so that's probably why. Just kind of finding ways to justify it. Because remember, at this point, a Stardust versus a Stardust, for the Loyalists at least, was almost an impossibility. So
ironically, as they're fighting Astartes, but
yeah, so they're like, okay, good. This is just an isolated case. Our brothers are here to help. Oh, damn it!
Yeah, like again, like the horror that I can't imagine like how that would feel. Like you went from seeing like this hope on the horizon to now like, ah, fuck, we're dead. Oh my god. And Vulcan got fucking nuked. It didn't kill him, but he knocked unconscious. And then this is shit I had to leave out of the in the nutshell because there's just so much detail. I had to simplify it like crazy. I just said Vulcan. I think correct me if I'm wrong, chat, for those who watched my lore video. I think I said something along the lines of Vulcan and his salamanders made a final stand and he was knocked unconscious. I should have probably included the simple line of he was nuked and was knocked unconscious. Which is far more badass, but...
He was nuked, knocked unconscious, and then kidnapped.
And he was handed off to Conrad Kurz.
I thought it was Conrad Kurz who kidnapped him.
Well, it might have been. I know that I read that, at least in the wiki it said this. The Lexiconum, I'm pretty sure, was more detailed, but I don't know. I think the wiki just said that he was captured by the traitor legions, but I think the Lexiconum might have gone in more detail on that specific thing on that page.
Yeah.
But I as far as I know, at the very least, Conrad Kurz for sure would. If he wasn't the one himself who captured him and kidnapped him, he was the one who received him and tortured him.
Oh yeah.
So either way, that detail didn't change.
Also, really cool was the fight between Korax and Lorgar, where Conrad Kurz comes up and saves Lorgar's ass. And you know what I love about this?
What?
You know what I love about that scene right there?
What?
Lorgar's like, "Thank you, brother, for saving me. I don't like you. I didn't save you because I like you. I saved you because you're important to Horus's plan. Now shut up." And he left.
And yeah. That's what you call like a shoulder dust off motion, a moment. Just bye.
Like, Kurz just hated Lorgar.
Well, who didn't?
Just like
the guy was
Lorgar
a prick.
Yeah, it's like, "Thank you for saving," because Korax was about to kill Lorgar. Fuck you, Kurz. The one time I can say that, because if Kurz was just like a second late,
conveniently a second late, mind you.
Yeah, Korax was literally about ready to behead Lorgar, and Kurz came up and stopped him, and Korax ended up running away. But Lorgar thinks Korax's Kurz's attitude is just like, "Dude, fuck you. I did it because you're needed, not because I like you."
I can't think of anyone who liked Lorgar other than his own legion. Like, who liked Lorgar? He was
I think to an extent Horus did.
I don't think Horus did like him, though. And I know, in terms of relationships, I know Horus was...
Magnus liked Lorgar.
Really? Magnus liked Lorgar?
Yes. Magnus liked Lorgar because they both had a desire for seeking knowledge.
Right. Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
So, and actually, the two Magnus had a few friends, which surprised me that I learned that he had more friends than what I originally thought among the Primarchs. Sanguinius was close to him.
Well, Sanguinius, I will throw this in there. Sanguinius was pretty close with all of his brothers.
That's fair.
Like,
the Khan was close to Magnus, which surprised the hell out of me.
That surprises me to hear, considering...
Perturabo and Lorgar.
Perturabo, I get.
The Khan was close to Magnus, and here's something else you might not know. The three Primarchs who created the Librarius were Magnus, Sanguinius, and the Khan. I'm in the process, and I've got to redo the research because I don't remember most of it off the top of my head, but I do remember that. But the current Primarch I am researching is the Khan.
Right. I do know you were researching the Khan. Well, anyway, in terms of the overall events of the Dropsite Massacre, I'd say, I pretty much covered all the most important ones in my own lore video. But what would you say are the because my lore video gives away like what I thought was the most important events. What would you say are the most important events that occurred during the Dropsite Massacre?
In chronological order.
Yeah.
Traitors fortifying, first wave of loyalists, attack, get pushed back. Second wave of loyalists come down, turns out to be traitors, and fucks up the loyalists even more. Ferrus Manus dies. Vulcan disappears. Corax disappears, but ends up retreating to Terra.
Yeah, those are about what I would call the most important events.
And that's about as simple as I can make it.
Yeah, that's... I made it as simple as I could. It's still one of my longer in a nutshells, I think. Isn't it like 7 minutes? Hold on. What was... I don't even know the length of my own video.
Hold on.
No, yeah, it's 7.5 minutes. Yeah, that's one of my longer ones.
Yep.
And that was the best I could do to condense it, I thought. Like, I did my utmost to put in every important specific moment. And I really wanted to discuss, like, the pre-strategy, but I couldn't go into too much detail of that. But what do you think of the strategy that the Loyalists were employing? Because I always thought that was kind of the most questionable part. Because the idea was that they were going to drop the initial first wave, which would act as the initial battering ram. It would smack against the enemy's defenses. They know full well they weren't going to breach their defenses with it, but they would weaken them. They would make them brittle, and they would exhaust the enemy's forces. Then they were going to drop the second wave, which was well rested, well armed, and would then would meet up and merge with the first wave and act as the second, more pummeling battering ram to finish off the now brittle defenses, and then push through and wipe out the enemy, which they were exhausted fighting the first wave, while the second wave of loyalists takes over as the vanguard and acts as the main force. And they're not only not exhausted, but they're fully enforced, they're fully armed, and they're prepared for battle, while the enemy was exhausted by the first wave. And the second wave could then act as a backdrop, or kind of like a pullback position for the second wave, which was now the primary wave pushing forth into the enemy's territory. Strategically, there's a lot that's sound there. The part that I always think that most people would question is why they didn't just drop everybody at once and overwhelm them all at once. Like, why
I get why they didn't drop them at once.
Yeah, and my argument for that is because that the enemy was in an entrenched position, that if they did drop both waves at the same exact time and attacked all at once, from a strategic standpoint, that means their full force would go up against the enemy's full force, and both would be as exhausted and tired as time went on. because those who are in the entrenched positions are in a position to fight a larger force because they're in a defensible, siegeable area. They're able to withstand the force, so they can make up their lack of numbers simply with the fact that they're in an entrenched position. So doing one wave to exhaust those defenses and then doing a second well-rested one to then finish off those defenses was strategically sound. But
I'll say this. Legion choice was an important one here too.
Yes, that is true.
I think they made really smart choices because you have your first set of 2 legions who are known for standing and fighting, Salamanders and the Iron Hands. And you have 1 hit and run, which would be Korax and his Raven Guard, against 2 legions who essentially stand and fight, which are the Emperor's Children and the Death Guard. One that does not believe a battle line is a thing, which is the World Eaters, and one that does strategically fight and tries to aim for command structures, being the Sons of Horus.
Yeah.
So, it's a matter of separating them. And what they did was actually pretty smart because they managed to pull the World Eaters out a little bit because they have a problem with aggression.
Yeah.
Now, when the second set jumped in, I believe the ideal way for it to have gone would be for the Word Bearers to jump in with the original 3, the Alpha Legion and the Night Lords to flank, and then the Iron Warriors to hold essentially what would be a retreat line, so that if any of the Loyalists needed to retreat, they could come back to this line and rest and resupply to go back into it. And that would be their job, would be essentially holding that line to make sure no traitors got past them.
Well, so don't you think that Perturabo would also stand to be the more ideal? Perturabo and his Iron Warriors, as they are experts of defense craft like Rogel Dorn, don't you think they'd be best for setting up the defense point, especially by the drop site?
That's what I said, is the Iron Warriors would be the ones
doing that. Sorry. I heard Iron, and I think my brain went to Iron Hands. Sorry.
No. So the Iron Hands...
Yeah, I totally agree then. Oh, sorry. That was like the one detail.
It would essentially be like Iron Hands, Salamanders, and Word Bearers rotating out. Korax would go to almost a strictly flanking with the Night Lords and Alpha Legion. And then the Iron Warriors would hold that ridge as a retreat point.
Yeah. And I think that's especially like one of the... that's definitely one of the reasons I think like what the second wave was doing when they landed that didn't make the first wave suspicious. Because when the second wave landed, immediately Perturabo was establishing defenses by the drop site. Now we know the reason for that wasn't to create a defensible position, it was to block their escape. It was to block the first wave's escape. But to the first wave, that would look like they were setting up the defensible position to which the first wave could retreat back to and recuperate its losses.
Also, if I remember how they were dropped, it's been a while since I've actually looked at the map. But if I remember right, the Alpha Legion and the Night Lord, or at least the bulk of the legions, were dropped on the flank. So it looked like they were going to flank. Instead, they just performed a pincer.
Well, yeah, that's why it wasn't suspicious, because you're correct. Yeah. The Alpha Legion and the Night Lords actually were on the same flank, which was away from, not the ridge, but the part that was more of a hill. The thing is, the way the map makes it look is it's almost like a canyon. Almost, like it's almost got like a rock wall on one side and more of like a sandy or dirt hill on the other. So either way, it's like they're in a sort of large pit. At least that's how the map looks to me. So on the escapable ridge, the one that's more of a hill, more of a dirt hill that you could feasibly climb out of and escape, was where both the Alpha Legion and the Night Lords went to defend that, while the Word Bearers went towards the rocky edge by themselves to flank the first wave, because you don't need 2 waves to block what's an inescapable wall. So but to the first wave, that looked like they were just taking up their sides because they were going to help them surround the Traitor Legion's defenses. That's why they weren't suspicious of it. But damn. Yeah. Damn, that backfired. Holy shit. They got surrounded. That was Oh god. And the way it read too was just so epic. Like they were retreating, and I almost could hear like that dramatic like opera music that's in the background of certain like tragic events like that in like movies and shit. Like I could hear that as like the flare goes up and it explodes, and then the Salamanders Ravenguard just like looked around all around them, and as the realization is dawning on them, it's too late, and it just without any kind of hesitation, Iron Warriors, Word Bearers, Night Lords, Alpha Legion, all just swarm from all sides, these already battered and broken sons of bitches. Like, just picturing it is so scary, but awesome. That is definitely why I would say the Dropsite Massacre is one of the more interesting events in 40K's timeline, especially the Horus Heresy's timeline. Because that is just,
I'll say it's really hard for me between the Istvan 3 betrayal and the Istvan 5 Dropsite Massacre. Both of them hold very dear places in my heart.
I would say
mostly because every time I do Legions or Primarchs, I have to read about the fucking things.
Right, man. I would say that I get where you're coming from, because Istvan 3, the betrayal there was definitely significant. I mean, that's when the banners were put up. But I'd say that the reason I would put Istvan 5's Massacre above that is that's when the true, like, that's when the cards were really being dealt. That's when Horus showed his real hand. And in the most, like, there is no more badass way to really pull a fuck you on your enemy than that. I mean, hot damn.
Well, and I think the reason I prefer 3 over 5, Istvan 3 over Istvan 5, is because that's when and this is more of specifically in the books, like, it's a more emotional hit because that's the first attack of the Horus Heresy. It's when a lot of the loyal factions within the Traitor Legions are either eliminated, or if they're not outright eliminated, they're watching their brothers be just utterly slaughtered.
Yeah, and I get that trust me, Istvan 3 is definitely up there. I'd say it's second, especially in terms of Horus Heresy. It's either second to the Dropsite Massacre or on par. The reason I put the Dropsite Massacre ahead of that is Ferrus Manus dies. Pretty big moment. I mean, that's where, like, whenever I hear the line in like Dawn of War, or I can't remember which game has which 40K game has this line, but even gods may die.
Yeah,
like, that's where that phrase really started, because that's where I'll think about it. That's when, like, the most major amount, like, yeah, we already know the Lost Legions were all but confirmed. One or both were killed, but real time, like, actual, like, widely known and confirmed, that was, like, the first major Primarch death.
Yeah.
And to the wider Astartes, that was the moment that they thought these godlike beings, the Primarchs, could die. Like, that was the moment. Like, for me, that's why the Dropsite Massacre is, for me, more significant than Istvan 3's betrayal. Is, like, right. That's when gods can die really hit the Astartes. And they realized that who they had considered, if not on a conscious level, on a subconscious level, were immortal, could die. Like, I cannot think of a more, like, hitting specific, like, obviously there's more emotionally devastating blows, especially with Istvan 3, but right. In terms of just, like, cultural significance to the Imperium and to the Astartes, that was one of, if not the biggest for them. Because I'm pretty sure most Astartes before that moment, in the back of their heads, they didn't believe their fathers could die. And
absolutely.
So, for me, that's why I would put Istvan 5's Dropsite Massacre above Istvan 3. That's just me, though. If Ferrus Manus hadn't died, then I'd probably put Istvan 3 ahead. But.
I mean, that's a very fair assumption. I agree with it to an extent. It's just, so there's just something about this font 3 for me.
No, I get you. It's all preference. All right. So I think we more or less, summarized our thoughts on the Dropsite Massacre.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick. I just gotta go pee, so
Okay.
I'll be more in a minute, and then we'll immediately jump on the Zerg v Tyranids.
Yeah, it's like I won't talk about what we talked about last night because that was funny.
Yeah. All right, right back.
And also understand that, like, what we say is just our opinions. It's not like full on law about which battle was best. It's just we all have our different preferences. Read passages out of the Old Testament. That's kind of funny. I mean, and again, it's like, so there are people that prefer different parts of, they prefer different 40k factions, or they prefer different parts of 40k lore. There are some that like, current 40k. There are some that like right before 40k, and then there's some like me who prefer Horus Heresy. So it's all just preference. I mean, again, Asmogon prefers Imperial Fist, Black Templars. I prefer Thousand Suns. So. No, the reason I said Calkill that was funny is look really close at my my avatar.
All right, back.
Okay.
All right. So your topic, you want to bring it up?
So me and Asmogon talked about this last night. I have a video coming out Friday, which will be the first official time that Asmogon's intro will be played on my channel. And it is the second in the series of actually 4 now of StarCraft versus Warhammer 40k. And this one is Zerg versus Tyranid. There are a couple things that I found really interesting. And one, I did not know that the size difference was that fucking massive. A Hydralisk and a Warrior is like 3.5 meters. A Warrior is 2.4 meters. An Ultralisk is 5 meters by 20 meters, and a Carnifex is like 4.5 meters tall. So they are big, granted, but I didn't realize that the Zerg were so much bigger. But now, when it comes to versatility and almost sheer power, Tyranids tend to outpower the Zerg. Here's where, and I say this in my video, and I think even Asmogon agreed with me on this. If we do it just strictly, physicality versus physicality, like an Ultralisk versus a Carnifex, and don't worry about any of the evolution bullshit, any like outside shit. Just would a Carnifex be able to physically take down an Ultralisk? We tend to agree that Tyranids would be able to fuck up the Zerg.
And yeah, I've always held that true. Like as I told you last night, I've always had the advantage when it comes to that argument of like Tyranids v Zerg, because it's been an existing debate for like a while. And I think Tyranid fans or 40k fans in general kind of have like this bias. Like they like to look at StarCraft or StarCraft lore as like the watered down 40k, which in many ways I could see. I tend to agree. Like the Terran Dominion is definitely a watered down Imperium. I can see that, but I think a lot of them also spread that out to the Zerg, and they're like, "Oh, the Zerg are just like a lazy, watered down Tyranids." And I think it's like, oh, any day the Tyranids would defeat the Zerg. It's a no questions. No, it was instant win. And I don't agree with that.
Well,
I don't fucking agree with that, and I've never have. Now, I've always had the advantage of being a fan of both franchises and being not a fan of the Tyranids. Not that I hate them, but I'm just not a fan. Like, I don't love them or hate them. They're one of those factions that I think are cool in concept, but I don't think they're particularly amazing or better than anything else. But when it comes to the debate of Tyranid v Zerg, a lot of people kind of brush off the Zerg because they're always jumping on, everything in 40k is meant to be overpowered, so therefore the Zerg just lose. Well, I don't agree with that at all, because the Zerg, if you look at their actual biology, the rapid ability to adapt and evolve to things as a collective versus the Tyranids' ability to evolve and adapt to their surroundings, it's a no contest. The Zerg are superior to the Tyranids at their evolutionary abilities. And
they would eventually evolve to be able to outstrip the Tyranids.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why whenever I've always heard that dumbass like statement, like, "Oh, the Tyranids would just win. It's a no-win argument. You know, everything in 40k is just designed to be better, therefore they win." It's like, yeah, everything in 40k is meant to be like the Doomsday variant of everything else, but I don't agree that they're better than the Zerg. I think a lot of people choose to blindly ignore the Zerg's advantages that the Tyranids simply do not have. The Tyranids are nowhere near that fast into evolutionary abilities that the Zerg are, and the way they evolve is not as like widespread.
And again, this goes down to the argument that I made. If we're just doing it in like a glass bottle, like a 10v10, not taking any like outside lore, just like, will this Carnifex with this ornament be able to take out this Ultra? You know, then yes.
Yeah.
Most likely Tyranids will win.
Yeah, that's the
bottle
arguments, though.
Yeah, but when you start adding in the lore, Zerg will win every time just because they'll be able to outstrip the Tyranids.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say Tyranids will put up a fight for a while, but that's about all they're going to be able to do. Like at the beginning, and so here's how it'll go. The Tyranids at the beginning do have an edge. But as soon as they lose that edge and it goes more even, the Zerg will keep gaining an edge on the Tyranids until finally they just overwhelm them.
Yeah, it really, for me, I don't, obviously, like, if we're talking about, like, bottlenecking, if we're talking about, like, if this specific unit versus this specific unit on small scale, yeah, Tyranids win a lot of the time. But when I'm talking about, like, Tyranids v Zerg, I've always looked at it as big picture. Like, Zerg Swarm versus Tyranid Hive Fleet. Who would win?
I tend to separate it out into both arguments.
I focus on big scale. Like, small scale, I tend to generally agree with the fact that Tyranids would win, because small scale, yeah, most of their units naturally are better than Zerg. But if we're looking large scale, Swarm v Hive Fleet, I give it to the Zerg every time. Zerg are way faster at evolution. Their units are incredibly versatile. They have some of their units are actually naturally better than some Tyranid units. So generally speaking, well, some it depends on the argument. Like an Ultralisk is better than a warrior, I would argue.
What is better than a warrior?
Ultralisk.
I would compare an Ultralisk to a Carnifex.
Yeah,
I would never compare an Ultralisk to a warrior.
But what I'm saying is, an Ultralisk is better than a warrior. Would you not agree?
I mean, but that's like saying an Ultralisk is better than a Hydralisk.
And well, that's the thing is, I'm not doing fair unit to fair unit. I'm doing like some units are better than what are in the Tyranids. Okay,
so I was just misunderstanding that, but okay, now I'm starting to see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not doing one for one. I'm doing like generally there are Zerg units that are better than some Tyranid units. Yeah. So there,
because like the way I paired it up was like Hydralisk versus Warrior, and I didn't know that there are some warriors that could fly, and that scares the fuck out of me. This goes down to like unit per unit. Like if you find the closest equivalent on both sides, the Tyranids do have versatility and power.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think that the versatility and evolutionary ability of the Zerg is superior.
Is definitely, yeah. No, I absolutely agree with that, and that's why I say when you do like, and I did this with Terrans and Imperium on the small scale. I took out a lot of the lore and just did it like equipment versus equipment. Actually, I gave one battle to the Terrans, which was the Terran siege tank versus the Predator tank. I believe the siege tank itself is more versatile in that it can go from a tank to essentially just a fucking artillery battery, and I think that would be able to punch through a Predator's armor.
If not, they would at least be able to get more shots off before the Predator would be in range to take a shot at the siege tank. So at the very least, we'd see that as an advantage. So yeah, I'd agree with that.
But and then when I took it up to the large scale, Imperium would just be like, "No, I want this,"
Exactly.
and they would just take it. And that's how I did it with the, and that's exactly how I did it with the Zerg Tyranids on the small scale, without just like, I can't say equipment versus equipment, but like an Ultralisk stats versus a Carnifex's stats, Carnifex would win. Hydralisk versus Warrior would win. Zerg, the weird one was the Zergling and the Hormagaunt. That one I kind of tossed up in the air and didn't really have a straight answer for it because it's so weird how each one of them works. But that being said, once you take it to the large scale,
what would be the Gene Stealer equivalent in the Zerg hive or Zerg swarm?
Infested Terrans, probably.
Really? You think that they're that low on this low on the scale?
I would say that would be about the only thing I could give them, honestly. But even then, a Gene Stealer would probably be able to take out Infested Terrans pretty easy.
I would probably say
that'd be a hard one.
I'd probably say Zerglings would be. I'd say Zerglings v Gene Stealer.
Well, I did Zerglings versus Hormagaunt because that's kind of like their visual equivalent, and they're both like the base units. So when I did that, the Hormagaunt is a little bit bigger and is definitely more powerful. But where the question comes into play is that when Zerglings morph, you don't get one Zerg, you get one Zergling, you get two Zerglings. So that's what made it questionable is, do I make it two Zergling versus one Hormagaunt or 1v1? How does that work out? And I did both of them. I was like, if it's two Zergling and one Hormagaunt, Zergling will probably win. 1v1, Hormagaunt wins easily. So it's kind of, there were a lot of factors, especially with that one, that made it a little bit confusing. But again, just like I did Terran versus Imperium, actually the exact opposite of Terran versus Imperium. 40k won a lot small scale, but once you get up to the big scale, StarCraft just took this one. They're like, nah.
So Corn just said, those first two comments I have a problem with, so I'm gonna encounter those. We actually don't know how large a Tyranid hive is now, but I'm not talking about the whole hive because we don't know that, and I'm only going based on known factors. If we go to we don't know this or we don't know that, well, what do you want me to do? Just guess? Just assume that the entire hive of the Tyranids is,
And this is why I did it the way I did too, because I'm going to
focus on what we do know, and in the size groups that I can work with, which is a hive fleet. I'm not going to do a guessing game on whether how many more Tyranids there are more than the overall swarm of the Zerg. I'm going to go based on what I can go off of, which is we know of hive fleets, so I'll go with a hive fleet versus the swarm. Because that's roughly the size comparison. That's what I can work with. I can't just give it to the Tyranids because I don't know how big the overall hive is. That's just ridiculous. Or if we've seen everything that Nids have. Correct, we haven't, but it's the same problem. I'm not going to invent a magical imaginary unit that the Nids might have that could just wipe out every Zerg. I'm not going to give that to them because I don't know. So I'm going based on what we do know. It'd be retarded if I just gave it to the Tyranids because we just don't know everything. That's stupid.
And you need at least a bolter to kill a Gene Stealer? That's not true.
And are we forgetting about Ripper Swarms?
I wouldn't really include those because those are, at least in the games, those are the equivalent of builder units. So I don't really worry about them. So it was just one of the things where it was their utility to me. So I didn't even really look into them.
And to be fair, I can't think of too much about the abilities of the Ripper Swarms. Hold on.
Also, I think they are much smaller than Zerglings.
I believe they are, but I don't know for as a fact. Okay, there are small. They're maggot-like.
Yeah. So then there's
size, no. Response facilities, speed and scale. Tyranids are okay. Rippers are the most numerous of the Tyranids creatures and are in great swarms. They can pull down and consume creatures many times their own size. However, they will perish and lose a synaptic link with a high link.
okay. So,
zipping through it, they're like little maggots.
Okay. So, and he's saying lore-wise, Ripper swarms should be all around the place. Okay. Good. Again, this is also saying like, so the way evolution works for Tyranids is send in a wave, gets killed by lasgun fire. Send in a second wave, gets killed by lasgun fire. Send in a third wave, they're resistant to lasgun fire. Here's how evolution works in the Zerg. Random planet in the sector, they get say the raptor gene for the Zerglings. All Zerglings in the swarm, no matter where they are, now have the raptor gene. So I get what you're trying to say. It's just their evolutionary rate and how the Zerg work. Again, at the beginning, the Tyranids would have an edge, but they would very quickly lose it.
Yeah, just zipping through it. I'm not reading it properly, mind you. It looks like a Ripper swarm. One of the Rippers is like the size of like a large cat or like a small dog. If I'm looking at that correctly.
Yeah, so again, and the reason I compared Hormigons to Zerglings is because they are roughly comparable in size, and they do the same job.
I would say if I had to, like, again, I haven't read this properly, so I might be missing some details. I'd say that maybe like a set of like 10, or I don't know, that might be too generous. I'd say like 5, maybe 6 Rippers would probably be the equivalent of like 1 Zergling.
Well, so here's how I want to do this. Then, if you really want Rippers,
it's the thing. The thing is, I don't. I'm just like basing like on.
No,
it's really hard to argue because they're little. Because the thing is, when it comes to including Rippers, the complication is you can't do a 1v1 because Rippers by themselves, like they're a creature that cannot fight on its own. It's meant to be a swarm. Like it's meant to fight in like groups of like 500. Plus.
Well, no, you're going to see the point I'm getting to. There's a reason why I'm doing this. There's because we're doing all these what ifs. So one of the abilities is from StarCraft 1 is Queens had a spawn broodling ability, which would explode an enemy and spawn 2 broodlings, which would be, I would guess, the equivalent of Rippers. So let's say they go on up to a Zoanthrope or a Hive Tyrant. And you spawn broodling and just blow the motherfucker up and create broodlings. Well, now that the Tyranids have lost their essentially their psychic connection to each other, they're all just going to go frenzy and fight each other. What ifs work in both directions?
True. So I'd say we could probably continue debating this, but I think it's just, I'll simplify it as I give it to the Zerg if big picture. I'm not going to argue little picture because for me, like that argument is entirely based on very self-contained details. And these are if we're talking like Astartes v something like that makes sense because they're more individualistic combatants and beings. When it comes to debating individuals in swarms like Zerg or Hive Fleets, these are creatures that aren't meant to fight one-on-one by themselves.
Right.
Individually.
Well, the reason I did it small scale was just like, how do they pair up to each other? Again, like the examples I used was Zergling Hormigont, Tyranid, or Hydralisk, Warrior, and then Ultralisk and Carnifex. And it was just like, how do they match up to each other? And then I did, here's what it would look like, Swarm versus Hive Fleet, or, well, big scale, essentially. So that, it's kind of like, in a bottle, Tyranids do tend to have the advantage, but essentially like just using their equipment, Tyranids have advantage. But once you add in the lore and the evolution rate, that's when the Zerg really shine.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna call that topic there. Well, we
Yep.
can do a 10-minute Q&A. We're already kind of a little bit over the clock, but if you don't mind, we can push another.
Oh
10
no, I
minutes.
don't mind at all.
All right, so 10-minute Q&A. I guess the same rules as our big Q&A. Like, don't ask any private information, and yeah, I think that's like the only rule. I think.
I don't think they do Carnith Corn. I'm actually almost positive they don't.
Death, by the way. I don't think they. If I
think that was
you're
just
more topic. You're more like researched on this than I am at the moment.
I think that was just a gameplay mechanic they put into Dawn of War 2 just to make the Carnifexes that much deadlier because assholes.
Yeah, based on what I know, I'd say no. I don't think they typically explode once you kill them, but that's based on my limited knowledge. Like Tyranids are like
they do. It's just so you don't kill them in melee, or at least so if you do kill them in melee, you know to get the fuck out of dodge.
Okay, so do they explode in the lore as well? Or
no.
Okay, so it is just in the game.
Yeah,
that's like, again, you're more like versed on everything than I am. I'm versed on Tyranids as a whole, and I am versed on some specific units. Like I know plenty about Gene Stealers, Warriors, Hormagaunts, things like that. Like bigger units, like the Rippers are they're probably the ones I know the least about. Just skimming it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know like the general method, like the general function of the Tyranids fleets and the general function of the Zerg, and that's what I've always judged like the verses on.
Yeah, and like I said, the reason I did it that way is just because I like doing the equipment versus equipment argument, and then grand scale. And I'm going to do it the same way for Protoss v Eldar, but I am going to have to read up on Eldar to find like comparable units, which is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, and I've already given you my feedback on that one, like who I thought would win, who I think would win that matchup.
I think in like preliminary, I will say this preliminary without doing any added looking into it.
Probably.
Huh?
Sorry, it's just Garth Corn said Tyranids must smell like ass. I'd have to agree. Yeah.
Preliminary going into before doing any extra research to find comparable units from Eldar, I'm going to say Protoss would probably win most of the small scale and would take the large scale. And I might even do this as kind of like a little bonus aside, is if I put them up against Dark Eldar. I think Dark Eldar would just would just absolutely fuck up the Protoss.
Yeah,
I think their way of fighting would be that they just their style of fighting is almost perfect for taking on a force like the Protoss.
Okay, so Pierce joined earlier. I think I missed it. Sorry about that, man. Welcome. Yeah. So just a reminder, guys, we're doing like the Q&A sections. So you have about I don't know, 8 minutes left to ask us some
7, 8, yeah.
7, 8 minutes, something like that. To ask us some general questions. It can be 40K related. Can be, our opinions on other things. I'd say generally, the other like rule would be like politics. Like don't go into politics, but nerd stuff, geek stuff, even stuff about us personally. As long as it's not like,
where do you live so I can come kill you? Don't ask that question.
What's your social security number? What was your dog? What was your first pet dog's name? Things like that. If Gene Stealers became Jeans with a J, Steelers, HIW, would they wear said jeans? Laughy face, laughy face, laughy face, laughy face. I don't know, would they?
What would you say between the different hive fleets? Who is the most interesting / deadly? I don't have any information about the differing hive fleets because I wasn't. It was just Tyranids as a base. Now, when I do eventually do Tyranid videos, then yes, I will probably include the different hive fleets, and I probably will have an answer for you then. But right now, I just don't.
The only hive fleet I'm aware of is the one at the Devastation of Ball.
I know there's
Wasn't
High
that
Fleet
Leviathan?
Leviathan and the High Fleet Kraken.
Yeah,
But that's all I know.
I know of Leviathan, and I know certain details about that. The other one, what was the one you just listed? The other one,
Leviathan and Kraken.
Kraken. I don't off the top of my head, nothing triggered for information in my head there. I don't think I know much about the situation with the High Fleet Kraken.
And again, I really don't. I just know that that's like the name of two of them. It's just that I know that they exist, but that's about it. Just had a thought if Sauron wasn't level.
If Sauron was in 40K, what level of might would he attain there, and which Chaos God would he likely end up under? My first thought would be Tzeentch.
Chaos Undivided.
Sauron, I'd have to say, in terms of like scale, he'd probably be the equivalent of a
I could see Chaos Champion, maybe Demon Prince.
Maybe I don't know. Demon Prince for me would be going a bit far. But either that, if you're being generous, I'd say Demon Prince. If
and again, I
more conservative on like the less extreme end, I'd probably say he'd be the equivalent of like I'd say probably a Chaos Space Marine, slightly more powerful than that.
I could see him being a Chaos Champion. His height has nothing to do with it, Jacob Jones. I could see him being a Chaos Champion. I don't know if I could really see him being a Demon Prince. It's just an eventuality thing. But
Demon
I
Prince
do
is
absolutely
described as so damn powerful. Like, as powerful as Sauron is, like, I know he is very powerful in Lord of the Rings, but from the displays of power I remember from the books and his powers depicted in the movies, nothing he did or nothing he's done is as over the fucking top as a Demon Prince. Not that I can think of.
And I don't think anything ever will be, because it's also comparing like Lord of the Rings to 40K. It's just how his power scales in Lord of the Rings, how it is power scale in 40K using a similar power scale. Yeah. So what he is in Lord of the Rings, he could be, what would be the equivalent in 40K of a Chaos Champion, maybe a Demon Prince, is what I was saying. That being said, I absolutely believe he'd be Chaos Undivided. I don't think Tzeentch, he was known to have kind of an angry side. So you have Khorne there. You could see, even to an extent, maybe Nurgle, with his desire to corrupt everything. There's Slaanesh, and to an extent Tzeentch, but not enough to be solely Tzeentch.
Yeah, I'd say in terms of gods, I'd say Sauron. I'd say in terms of like which one he'd be closest to would probably be Khorne, in my opinion. With like the leadership of the orcs and desire to conquer and defeat all his enemies. There's a lot of aggression and anger, and there's a lot of that there with Sauron. There's also his desire to control everything. He doesn't want to necessarily just destroy everything. He does want to conquer it and control it. So that's a little bit of Nurgle with spreading his dominion. Tzeentch, the changer of ways. Sauron never came across to me as someone who just wanted to kind of fuck with people. Like, there was always an objective. He fucked with people
in the ultimate way. He killed them.
Well, yeah, he fucked with people, but it was always with a overarching objective. Like, he only fucked with people as far as he needed to achieve his goal of, spreading his dominion and conquering all of
I think the whole universe. I think the bullshit with the Rings of Power would make it kind of a Tzeentch Slaanesh
Well, even then, again, the ring only corrupted and fucked with people's brains to get back to its master. It wasn't doing it for the sole purpose of fucking with their minds. It wasn't doing it just for that sole purpose. There was a goal to it. With Tzeentch, the goal is the fucking with fate, the changing of ways, the alteration of events. That's Tzeentch. There was no overarching purpose necessarily to it, to the changing of fate.
I got it. So, I got the answer to this one. I got the answer.
What?
I know how to make the argument for Tzeentch for Sauron. He created the rings so he could corrupt them to scare a halfling, to be able to help him commit suicide since he couldn't do that anymore. It's a plan within a plan within a plan.
And I give you that. That's convoluted, but I don't think that's accurate.
No, but it was a great way to make that work, wasn't it?
And yeah, James Mackin, welcome. Enter Morgoth. Enter Morgoth. Isn't Morgoth the guy who was higher than Sauron?
I have no idea.
I know. Pierce, you're the resident major Tolkien fan. So Morgoth's the other guy, right? And if so, from what I remember you telling me of the guy above Sauron in terms of the evil scale, like Satan for that universe, I'd say he was probably definitely Demon Prince level. From what I recall of the description. Also, he had a dragon that was the size of a fucking mountain. So, yeah, that would follow. And one of his only competitors was a spider large enough to eat, like, half the planet, so... Yeah, I'd say that with Morgoth on that power scale, I'd have to give him Demon Prince level at least.
Sauron's plan was to mind control all of the ring bearers and through them rule everybody. Sauron uses guile and trickery and subversion as often as force. I mean, you can make that argument for
you
Tzeentch.
could make that, but the thing is, again, Tzeentch fucks with people to fuck with them. Like, there's no like reason to do it. Like, the only exception with like that would probably be with like the Primarchs and like yeeting them out of their chance. Like, there was a purpose behind that fuckery. But if we're talking general
self-preservation,
if we're talking about general Tzeentch fuckery, the fuckery is the goal. It is the point. There is no other reason. There is there is greater reasoning, but we can't comprehend it. Even Tzeentch doesn't fully. He himself has said, I don't know if this is like him or just one of like his reps in the lore, but one of them has said like he knows all yet he knows none, shit like that. So he knows and he doesn't. So with Tzeentch, it's the point is to fuck with people. The point is not a overarching reason. So that's why I argue against Sauron fitting with Tzeentch, because he has goals. He has very specific things he's trying to achieve, and any kind of fuckery with people's minds or events or ongoings of like the timeline, all that is just done so he can achieve his overarching goal. None of it is done for the sole purpose of like fucking with people.
And that's why I kind of gave him to Chaos Undivided, is because you could make an argument for all four gods. You really could. So at that point, it just might as well say Chaos Undivided.
I'd just say like for me, like there's just the weakest argument is Tzeentch. Like the other three, I can more easily. Slash would be like the second weakest in my mind. Like even then, though, all those spikes on that armor, I don't know. Guys definitely got a razor fetish, so.
Come give old One Eye a hug.
Yeah, but for me, like the one I would argue. I guess now that I think about it more, I'd probably say Tzeentch is second least him affected next to Slaanesh, because other than like the spiky armor, and definitely I'm certain has a razor fetish. Other than that, I'd say Sauron has next to nothing with Slaanesh.
Well, here's the argument for that, and this is one where I did a deep delve into Slaanesh, and this is the only reason I fucking know this. Slaanesh has power over the Chaos Gods.
Fair.
Because Nurgle has the desire to spread his plague, Khorne has the desire to cause war, and Tzeentch has the desire to essentially just fuck with people. All of them fall under the realm of desire, which is Slaanesh's realm. So Slaanesh has power over all the gods. So even desire. So you could argue that Sauron's desire for power. It's a loose argument, granted, but that is kind of how Slaanesh works.
It is, but that's because it's not just desire. It's desire and experiences in excess. Like you can desire something, but as long as you're reasonable about like that desire, like it may, you may be really dedicated to it, but as long as it's not an obsession it's not really powering Slanesh. Once it's in something in excess, like lust in excess, like you can have sex, it won't give her, he, whatever, power. But if you're like fucking like on every prostitute around every fucking corner and you can't stop, then Slanesh is getting some power from that. If drugs, like if you just take like a quick like stim pack or something like that, that ain't gonna give Slanesh nothing. Like you just real quick heal. But if you're like going wholesale on the opioids and going smoking all those doobies and really going at it with a cocaine, Slanesh is like, yeah, that's that good shit. It's about stuff in excess. So,
not necessarily. The way Slanesh works is, and a really good example of this was Fulgrim. Is that so? Let's use the drugs as an example. You get the idea that you want to try. I don't even know why I'm going down this road, but you want to try cocaine once. Then Slanesh is like, okay, you tried it, you enjoyed it, so do it again. Now you want to do a little bit more. And then you're hopelessly addicted. That's how Slanesh works. Slanesh is not just instant, addiction. It's
but that's like my point was like that's like the empowerment though. Is like that's what empowers her. I just say her because it's easier for me. The thing is, it for some reason doesn't work much for for me. That just sounds wrong. I don't know why. Maybe it's just my brain and the way like I like refer to what I consider a being. Like
right.
I can't help it. Like I have to use like he or her. Like for me, so I'll just go with her.
Okay.
Her power comes most from the ultimate excess. Now, yes, part of her gaining power is she has to like slowly build up to that, but she's not gaining that much power until they've reached that excess, until they've really gone the extra mile.
And I don't think it's really a matter of her gaining power from it. It's just which Chaos Gods would have influence over Sauron. And I think his desire for world domination, essentially what it is, that would be enough of a way in for Slanesh. His way of doing it would be a way in for Tzeentch. Him doing it would be a way in for Khorne. And Nurgle is actually the one I'm having the most problems with, is because disease and stagnation.
Well, it's also life and death. It's also life and death.
True.
Like most people forget that about Nurgle, which I can't blame, because most people when they see him, they see the plague, they see like the disease and they see that, but underneath the surface, Nurgle's very much also about life and death. He likes life because while you're alive, you're constantly dying. Like life is just about the slow burn to death to him.
Yeah.
So he's very much the Chaos God in a very weird way of life and death. Like that's very much like he loves you when you're alive because you're slowly dying. In a way you could call that the ultimate version of decay that every human experiences, let alone every living thing experiences, except for Astartes. They seem to not really decay. Well, they definitely get like worn out, but not like age decay.
Yeah, because canonically they don't age.
Exactly. So they're like the alternate of that. So he probably hates Astartes, but like a normal human or any like normal living creature with a lifespan, throughout their life they're dying. In a way, you could argue that's a form of decay, and he loves it. So, like, that's something else to pay attention to. So, I would argue that with that, Sauron, in his own way, also also appreciates life and death. He likes those living to serve and be enslaved under him, and those who oppose him, he wants them to die. So, in a way, he's bringing life and death. He's offering life to those who will serve him and offering death to those who oppose him. So that's like the loose argument for Nurgle, I would argue.
Right.
That and the orcs are kind of diseased and, like, fucked up. So if we're going for the disease angle, there's still that.
They're covered in their own filth. Nurgle!
That would be the easier way to put it. Random nerd from Oregon, we need more 40k games with the Blood Ravens. I need to hear gift it to the chapter ? In proper dubbing. Well, I guess you're just joining the podcast now, which actually we should probably wrap this up. But we did talk about it towards the beginning of the podcast, so go ahead and start it over.
No, it's not. Yeah, that's not Blood Ravens. That's Blood Angels.
Oh, sorry, did I say that? Oh, he said Blood Ravens. Okay, sorry, I just translated it to Blood Angels because of the title. Sorry about
that. As far as new games with the Blood Ravens, I'm kind of okay leaving them where they're at.
Yeah, the Dawn of War games works fine.
Yeah, they have some pretty interesting lore. Just leave it there so it doesn't get fucked up.
And yeah, that is like the big argument is like, if you want new stuff, keep in mind the new stuff is being made by GW, so, and their lore writing is, well, it speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we gotta wrap.
I am gonna have to go pretty soon because I have to help my dad with something.
And I'm already late letting the dog out. So, anyway, thank you guys so much for watching and for hanging with us. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Geekus Theoreticus podcast. We had a lot of fun chatting with you guys and just discussing and debating.
Actually, hold on 1 second. There was one quick question. We did kind of miss it. I do feel bad because we missed it. Okay. And this is one we can handle real quick. Dragonus asks, what do you think about the Custodes? How strong are they compared to normal Marines, Primaris, and Guard? I would say they're stronger than all three.
Wait, where's the
easily stronger than Guard? Huh?
Oh, sorry, I was looking for the question. I just saw it.
Easily stronger than Guard. They've been canonically stronger than regular Stardays. I don't think there's any reason to assume they would not be stronger than Primaris.
Oh, 100%. I don't believe the Primaris are on their level at all. And if GW tries to say that, fuck you, no. No. Fuck you, no. I would not accept that even remotely. And I think GW's somewhat smart enough to understand that. Don't fuck with where the Custodes stand.
I would not make that assumption knowing some of the recent shit they've done.
And yeah, a lot of their recent crap is really, really bad. But as far as I've seen, they've yet to go that bad of forgetting where the fucking Custodes stand in terms of their power and importance. So, fuck that. No. The Primaris are not on their level. Fuck that. The Custodes are definitely more powerful than them. They're more powerful than the Astartes. What was the other one that was listed?
Jorge says Custodes, you mean custards.
Why you? Well, yeah, that's right. Earlier meme. Fuck, I forgot the meme that we just made. The custards. For anybody who's just joining now, you're totally confused where the hell that came from. Well, rewatch the stream.
And we're not sorry for it.
Rewatch the stream. I'm not going over it again. It was way earlier, but someone was trying to say something about Custodes to us. And they misspelled it to custards. So I said, "Fuck it, I'm stealing that." That's a new That's an upcoming emoji on my Discord. I swear, that's just too beautiful. Anyway, it's fun. But as for like how the Custodes stand against the Guard, who are the only ones I haven't compared them to, how is that even a question? Compared to the Guard, they're gods.
Pretty much. If they're stronger than Astartes, and Astartes could fuck up the Imperial Guard, what do you think a Custodes is going to do to them?
Yeah. It was more how many they could take on, is what you're going to say. Okay.
A lot.
Marines, I'd say, personally, I would say would be 10 Firstborn Marines to a Custodes. I'd say it'd be, I have to admit how powerful the Primaris are. I'd have to say 5, maybe 6 Primaris to a Custodes.
Yeah.
And to a Guardsman?
A regiment?
No. I'd say 1 regiment would be very generous to the Guardsmen. A regiment backed by a lot of artillery. Other than that,
see the Custodes are getting artillery rained on. It's raining today.
Yeah, I'm just saying. That would be my stance on it. Is it would be a shit ton of Guardsmen to 1 Custodes. I know on the tabletop, you could argue that like a small squad of either Space Marines or Guardsmen, or we could argue tabletop rules. But if we're talking lore, which is where I'm coming from, lore, fucking A, dude. Like that'd be a shit ton of Guardsmen to 1 Custodes.
It would be funny as hell too.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we're gonna Gotta wrap it up. Sorry, guys. Thank you guys so much for participating in the podcast this week. We'll hopefully see you next week, assuming there's no roadblocks or anything causing us to be unable to do the podcast next week. But we had a lot of fun. Thank you, Ludus, for as always for being my co-host. Hope you enjoy the new intro. And
yes.
Other than that, thank you guys. It was a lot of fun. Have a
wonderful day.
Bye bye.